Welcome to Signing Day 2026. We are live here in Nashville, Tennessee. The Rivals Recruits channel is your place to be. Welcome in and happy signing day to all that celebrate. It used to be a national holiday. It still is here at the Rivals Recruits channel. We got my man, JD Pickell, as is tradition. It's not signing day without JD Pickell sitting shotgun with me. And JD, it's not signing day if we don't have a number one quarterback flipping in the lead up to the big day. Last year, obviously, it was all about Bryce Underwood and his flip from LSU. But yesterday, Jared Curtis. I mean, what did you think when you saw Jared Curtis? Well, the news broke. Steve Wiltfong, we're going to get to him here in a second, too. We got a host of characters on today's show. But what did you think when you saw Jared Curtis flip to Vanderbilt?
I think my first thought is, what in the world is going on? And then the dust settles a little bit. You sort of start to see how this whole thing happened with he's the hometown kid and Vandy made a push for him and obviously had the most access to him. But to me, Josh, the biggest takeaway I have here is like, this is new college football. Mm-hmm. Like at the end of the day, you can have a care factor when it comes to the resources, when it comes to recruiting a kid, when it comes to pushing for a kid. And Vanderbilt made all those efforts to get Jared Curtis in the boat. And it's kind of where we are now in college. Vandy landed the top quarterback in America. Who would have thought? Yeah,
and it was very similar to the Bryce Underwood flip. When you went back to the summer, Bryce Underwood was locked in. In the fall, he was locked in. Then about 3 weeks before the flip, the report started rolling in. There was whispers. And the same thing happened with Jared Curtis. Steve Wiltfong reported that week, about 3 weeks ago, when he showed up at that Vanderbilt practice, then followed it up with a Saturday game visit. You know, he said, this recruitment has a pulse. Yeah, it did have a pulse, and that pulse came roaring to fruition. Jared Curtis flips. Now, that's not the only storyline that we are focused on today. USC, number one class overall, Lincoln Riley. You know, the games had to be played. He had the number one class heading into the season into the fall, and the games had to be played. He did enough on the field to earn this number one class.
I distinctly remember talking to you, Josh, over the summer because we had sort of seen something like this before from USC.
Yeah, the year before.
A year ago. USC's hanging around the top 5. I think they shot up all the way to number 2 at one point in time a season ago.
Juju Lewis was the face of the class at the time. Yeah.
So as a USC fan, you're probably holding your breath a little bit like, hey, when's it going to happen? When's the other shoe going to drop? When are we going to have these guys flip away? And it hasn't happened. I guess you're still holding your breath until all the pens meet paper. But USC being number 1 today, Josh, on National Signing Day, feels like also a sign of the times with where college football is trending and the commitment from USC to go get Chad Bowden to be their GM, and they're seeing return on investment right away.
Yeah, pretty amazing run here by USC. You see the top 25 here. USC at the top, Notre Dame, Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia. Georgia was nipping at the heels of Southern Cal. Just yesterday, they were number 2 in the country, and it looked like, hey, maybe if they could get an addition or two on signing day, but instead Jared Curtis flips the day before, and Georgia slides all the way down to number 5. We're going to get Steve on here in a second and talk about some of the major flips that we're tracking, some of the storylines, some of the uncommit, some of the guys that have decided not to sign today. That's a big storyline, is guys just deciding not to stay, and I think a lot of that is due to coaching. So we've seen a lot of coaching chaos. We're going to talk about that as well. Big shakeups all across the country.
Just a few. Just a couple of big spots.
And already we're seeing big hires too. So we're going to talk about that and how that impacts recruiting. But guys, do me a favor. Hit subscribe. The Rivals Recruits channel. We've been around for 2+ years, and we just hit 100K. Thanks to you guys. What a run it's been. An amazing time on this channel. We've been having a lot of fun. And today is signing day. So let's bring in Steve Wiltfong, and I want to talk about Chris Henry Jr. The chat is going crazy right now, wants to know about Chris Henry Jr. We're expecting the modern-day signing to occur in about 30 minutes. So, Steve, what's your latest intel, not only on Chris Henry Jr., but also Dixon Wyatt, a wide receiver teammate of Chris Henry Jr. at Mater Dei, both committed to Ohio State?
Yeah, good morning, boys. Dixon Wyatt, we expect to be commit number 35 for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans in this top-ranked recruiting class The USC program, the local school, never stopped pushing for Kaylen Dixon Wyatt. They have a massive need at the wide receiver position moving forward. They already have some terrific players in the fold at the position led by Ethan Booby-Feaster, but they would like to add Kaylen Dixon Wyatt to the class. We think they will. Chris Henry Jr., my intel still favors him signing with Ohio State, been committed to the Buckeyes since 2023, but has given some attention to Oregon, USC, Miami, Texas, other programs throughout his process. Coming down the stretch, the threats remain Oregon and USC. I know that Dan Lanning and the Ducks have been working through the night trying to flip Chris Henry. And there's some sources that have said, keep an eye on USC for a signing day surprise. But the intel favors Chris Henry signing with Ohio State, sticking with a pledge that he gave very early in his process.
Yeah, really interesting there. Now, how are you feeling about the prediction you made on Kaylen Dixon Wyatt as well? The fellow modern-day wide receiver committed to Ohio State.
Yeah, I think that pick still tracks. And when he makes his announcement this morning, we think that he'll ultimately be in this USC class.
All right. That is some big news. JD, we saw the coaching chaos occur. We saw the coaches get fired. We've seen them get hired, and we saw the press conferences. Who do you think won their pressers when it comes to these new hires?
Oh, man. That's a great question. I'm a big believer in winning the press conference is overrated, but I do think that it's
still important. You can't lose the press conference.
Can't lose a press conference. I mean, it's the most winnable game on your schedule.
Right.
It's the easiest to prepare for. Man, listen to John Summerall talk about being excited to be at the University of Florida. He got choked up, a little bit emotional, talking about it's the Florida freaking Gators. And I know things kind of felt weird if you're a Florida fan because you had your heart set on Kiffin. It's Kiffin. And then going into Thanksgiving, sounds like Kiffin and the communication between them gets a little bit weird, a little bit irregular. And my takeaway was, okay, if Kiffin isn't all the way in on Florida, I don't want him to be our next head coach. I want someone that is frothing at the mouth to be our next head coach. And listen to John Summerall talk about his plan, his passion for the place, and the opportunity. That got me fired up. I have no dog in the fight, but that got me fired up if I'm a Florida Gator fan.
Yeah, and I think John Summerall, like you said, the pressers, they're not all that important, but I feel like he had the most to overcome. I feel like when it comes to presser adversity, the deck was stacked against him, yet he won. I mean, the mood on Twitter completely changed when it comes to Gator fans after hearing from John Summerall himself. I think, the dialogue heading into that, missing on Lane Kiffin and all that was kind of, a bit of a letdown, if you will, when it comes to the hire. But I do think John Summerall had one of the best pressers that we've seen. Now, there's going to be a couple more.
Sure.
What are the high notes that a coach must hit on at these opening day pressers?
I think one of the biggest things I took away from John Summerall's presser was like, he's going to recruit. Because I think that's probably a little bit of your question is, well, hey, he's from the G5. Florida's not Tulane or Troy.
Yeah.
Like, does he understand what he's walking into? Okay, we got action. We got action, Josh.
We got action. Sorry, we'll get back to this in a second, but we are here for the signings. And we got our first big flip of the show. Kaylen Dixon Wyatt, no longer a Buckeye. He's riding with the Trojans. Number one class in America, just got better with one of the top wide receivers, not just in California, but in the entire country. Steve, could you take us behind the scenes of the Kaylen Dixon Wyatt flip to USC?
Yeah, the Trojans just stayed relentless on Kaylen Dixon Wyatt, and I think ultimately him and his family wanted to stay closer to home to play his college football. He had a lot of love for Ohio State, the pedigree, the track record of development for the Buckeyes. But in the end, USC being closer to home, playing in an exciting offense for Lincoln and Riley and company for a program on the rise, but being able to have that support with family close by, I think was ultimately the major deciding factor for him to stay closer to home and flip to USC.
We got some really big news coming in, being reported by Brett McMurphy, Pete Nakos, and Chris Lowe of On3, and this could have to do with the Kaylen Dixon Wyatt flip.
But this is big news.
Brian Hartline is expected to be the next head coach at USF. He's heading to Florida, Tampa, Florida. Brian Hartline, wide receiver coach at Ohio State. What do you think this means? Well, we'll get to USF here in a little bit, but what does this mean for Ohio State recruiting in this moment?
Well, obviously, these receivers that commit to Ohio State do so because of Brian Hartline's track record of not only developing them to be drafted in the first round, but to walk into their first NFL training camp ready to compete at a high level. These Buckeyes receivers that are playing on Sundays are among the best at the position across the league. And so when you lose assistant coach of that magnitude, it's going to send some ripples on the recruiting trail. We'll see if it impacts some of these letters of intent later in the day. Chris Henry, Jerquaden Guilford, who I was told yesterday was a lock to Ohio State, was offered by LSU, nearly picked Ole Miss during the season. We'll see if this causes a pause. Then we're just speculating right now, obviously. But Brian Hartline, one of the top assistant coaches in college football, now getting a chance to run his program per reports at University of South Florida. And for the Buckeyes, you want to get those papers in today. And look, there's no question in my mind Brian Hartline is telling these kids they should still sign with Ohio State. The offense is a great fit for you. The way that they spread the ball around and have their receivers make such an impact across the board. But will it come down to the relationship that they have, or will they circle back on some other programs?
I mean, what do you think this means for Chris Henry Jr., though? Like, he's set to sign in 30 minutes. We're expecting Mater Dei to have their signing at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, which is 30 minutes from now. Chris Henry Jr. has to put pen to paper. Did you hear any whispers that Brian Hartline was leaving and there was some damage control that Ohio State could do to get out in front of this? Or do you think that Chris Henry Jr. is learning this in real time with the rest of us?
Well, that's the question. Did Ohio State, did Coach Hartline say, hey, I wanted you to know before it gets out in the news that I am leaving the program. I am going to the University of South Florida, and you should still stick with Ohio State? Or is he finding out the same way that we're finding out through Pete Nakos and company on the web?
It's crazy. JD, what do you think about that move for Brian Hartline? I mean, we know he's been whispered for some jobs, but even last year, it wasn't necessarily the head coaching jobs. It was like, what true OC job where Brian Hartline is legitimately calling the plays could he leave for? And then fast forward to a year later, now he's expected to be the head coach at USF.
The whole thing is crazy. I think the Ohio State discussion is so interesting because there's so many layers to it. Because, Brian Hartline is such an ace and obviously the calling card for you when it comes to recruiting top wide receiver talent, his relationships in the state of Florida and all those things. But you're like, okay, Ohio State, we're still going to have a dude at quarterback every single year. We're still the defending national champs. We're still the number one team. We still have Ryan. So there's all these things where I'm like, the Brian Hartline piece is obviously crucial. I think people commit to people in it's relationship business. And at the end of the day, it's a relationship that you lose. But I think for Ohio State, you got to still feel like you're swinging a pretty big bat on the recruiting front when everything sort of settles and emotions subside.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, I mean, Ohio State had been churning out number one draft picks at every position, not just wide receiver, well before Brian Hartline got there. Kudos to Brian Hartline for everything he's done, but that program is still going to do what it does with or without Brian Hartline. Congrats to him. Headed to USF. That's really interesting. Maybe get Brett Getz over at South Florida Express as your GM and really start pulling in that South Florida talent.
Brett Getz makes too much money to go be a GM at South Florida.
Hey, how about Brian Hartline with the walk-off too? We beat Michigan. We're about to play in the Big Ten title game. Cool.
I think he coaches at Ohio State through the rest of the season.
But the fact it comes out after Michigan, I think is just funny in itself. Hey, we beat Michigan first time in 4 tries.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'll take a head coaching job. Good for him.
Unbelievable.
Good for him.
So we'll see if the fallout from that. We'll continue to cover. The transfer portal will open. Brian Hartline will get active. It should be a storyline that we follow throughout the offseason. I just wasn't expecting this news to hit at this time on this day. You got to think, JD, that these teams, because we're hearing the buzz in the background here about coaching changes, and the buzz is that they want to wait until after today to make this. So, I wonder what happened here with Brian Hartline and how the news got out. I wonder if they got ahead of it with some of their prospects. All that information we'll just find out in the coming days. So let's move on and talk. I want to go back to some breaking news that we saw last night with Lane Kiffin, LSU, and their 5 stars. Just after putting out a video with Shea Dixon right here on this channel about how those 5 stars were locked in, Lamar Brown, Richard Anderson, the 2 players at the top of their commit list, announced last night. Look at this. Lamar Brown made a trip to greet Lane Kiffin at the facility on Sunday, and then comes out last night and says, I don't think I'm signing today. Steve, what's going on with Lamar Brown and Richard Anderson? Is this something that LSU fans should be concerned about? Is this a move that they made just because they can? What's going on here with these guys?
I still wouldn't be surprised if they put pen to paper sometime over the next 3 days and locked in their futures with LSU. I just think that this is just modern recruiting talking points, and it doesn't even necessarily, I don't even necessarily mean finances. So we'll see how it continues to play out. I think Sam Spiegelman's on top of it, and he continues to get fluid reports on if these young men will put pen to paper, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do ultimately sign with LSU over the next few days.
So Lane Kiffin heading to LSU. JD, what do you make of this new marriage between LSU and Lane Kiffin?
Well, I think one, it's awesome. I think they deserve each other. I think the personality of Lane Kiffin marries perfectly with the personality of LSU in the sense that both kind of beat to their own drum. Both you kind of put in their own category. Both LSU as a fan base and their track record with winning national championships, and then Lane Kiffin with the hot yoga, the transfer portal, the way he tweets, kind of both in their own lane, no pun intended. But going back to what you did a great job highlighting, I think, leading up to this National Signing Day, today just being the first day that kids can sign and not the only day kids can sign is a massive, massive detail that I think people just tuning into the world of recruiting may not be all the way dialed into. If I'm an 18-year-old and I'm a top prospect and I got an LSU commitment I'm trying to sort out, wouldn't you take a little bit longer to figure out exactly all your options and, hey, how do I fit into Lane Kiffin's program? How's that whole thing going to look? Maybe it's a little bit uneasy if you're a Tiger fan and you're maybe expecting some of these kids to sign. But I think when you get back to the human element here, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. I'd need some more time if I was an 18-year-old.
Yeah. I love this for college football. I would have loved to see him stay at Ole Miss, just to see what that would have meant for the program and this new era of college football. We see what Joey McGuire's doing at Texas Tech. We saw what Lane Kiffin. We see what's happening at Vanderbilt. These are unconventional teams that are rising to the top. Now, great. It's going to be fun. Lane Kiffin is one of the final characters left in college football. I kind of feel like, so we don't want these guys to go away. They are kind of agitators to a degree,
sure,
but we don't want them to go away. And, Lane Kiffin making his home in the Bayou. Let's pop up that top ranking list one more time. Overall, there you go. So we see LSU sitting. Where is LSU right now? Are they out of the top? Oh, they're at 12. I see them now. So LSU sitting at 12. Tennessee, Michigan, right ahead of them. Can they make a move? Can they move up? Steve, is there anybody else that LSU and Lane Kiffin have on their radar is signing day is here?
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to keep track of who sent in letters of intent right now. So kind of just kind of looking at that right now, but LSU is a program that is in the mix for some guys down the stretch. They're trying to flip 5-star receiver Jace Matthews from Auburn. Jace tells me he won't sign until Friday. The Auburn commit's also considering Ole Miss. They landed 4-star receiver Corey Barber this morning, former Ole Miss commit that took a visit out to Washington this weekend. They were trying to make a move with Joel Wyatt, a top 100 safety committed to Tennessee. He's locking in. Jalen Waters is another target for them. I don't know if he signed with Miami. And I was trying to look. Did Landon Duckworth?
That was an interesting.
Did he sign his letter of intent? South Carolina was expecting it at 7:05 in the morning. So, in real time here, as we look this up, we are looking to see if that LOI is in.
So Landon Duckworth is another one of those quarterbacks that made 2 commitments to the same school. A la Jared Curtis. I'm just saying, maybe there's something up with these quarterbacks that have made multiple commitments to the same school. Maybe we need to go check on all these. Well, I think there's really only 2 quarterbacks that made multiple commitments to 2 schools.
So Josh, go ahead.
Micah Nickerson just flipped from Missouri to Mississippi State, top 100 recruit. In the boat for Jeff Lebby and company on the heels of landing Braylon Womack, flipping him from Auburn yesterday. A lot of buzz that he's going to sign with Mississippi State today. Auburn was still working to work that back in their favor with DJ Durkin still working hard for the Tigers on the trail in the Braylon Womack sweepstakes. I've not seen anything
did
on
Womack
the web.
Sign?
I've not seen anything on the web about Landon Duckworth signing. So
okay. Did Womack sign?
I've not seen that either.
Because that was one as of yesterday that you were kind of unsure. Would he end up flipping back to Auburn? Do you know? I mean, is Auburn still working that one?
Auburn was working Braylon Womack as of yesterday still. Now, I talked to a source around Auburn. Talking to a source around Auburn this morning, there wasn't a lot of optimism about Braylon Womack. I do think that Landon Duckworth and LSU is very real, especially if he did not send in his papers this morning, as was indicated to Coach Beamer and his staff this morning. So if those papers don't come in, the longer it goes, I think you monitor LSU, who, as we all know, did not sign a quarterback in 2025. Now, they were able to supplement that by landing Michael Van Buren out of the portal, kind of as like a replacement to losing Bryce Underwood. They do not have a high school quarterback committed in 2026. And Landon Duckworth is someone that has existing relationships with this LSU coaching staff, including Lane Kiffin. So I think the Tigers could continue to become one to watch as this process continues. And my colleagues in our Slack channel tell me that Landon Duckworth has not put pen to paper. And as at last night, South Carolina was expecting that bad boy bright and early after talking to his family.
Man. All right.
If I was a quarterback, I might play for Lane Kiffin too. Trinidad Shameless going from D2 to the SEC and not missing a beat. Like, hard to blame Landon Duckworth at this point for considering the Lane train a little bit.
Yeah, and sometimes when you are that guy's first quarterback at the school, you're his guy. Maybe he's going to ride with you a little bit harder. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to track Landon Duckworth. But I want to, Steve, hit on another big recruitment in the top 100 that we've been chasing. That's edge Julian Walker. He's committed to Michigan, has been committed to Michigan for some time here, but it seems like South Carolina has not let off the gas when it comes to Julian Walker. What's the latest?
Well, he tells me that he's still talking things over with his family. Talked with him this morning. We are not expecting Julian Walker to sign until Thursday now. So if you're Michigan, that makes you a little nervous, obviously, because you got the last visit. You had him in Ann Arbor over the weekend for the Ohio State game, and he stayed on campus most of Sunday. He brought his mom up there to spend time with the Maize and Blue. It was her first time visiting with Coach Moore and company in person. He gave the visit high marks. There's no question that he feels Michigan's a special place where he could really be developed. But South Carolina, where his father's on the strength and conditioning staff, his relationship with Sterling Lucas, Shane Beamer, he's got a lot of belief that South Carolina is a place that can also get the best out of him and develop him into the player he wants to be. And his relationships are super solid around South Carolina. So the longer this goes, you obviously start to feel better and better about South Carolina. He visited the Gamecocks several times this season. He believes in the trajectory of the program. And so this one's obviously coming down to the wire as well. It would not be surprising to see a flip at this point, but Michigan's still battling to keep him in the fold, one of their top overall targets, regardless of position. He's one of our top overall targets at Rivals, number 26 player overall in America.
All right. We'll keep tracking that one. Now, I think we're going to have Joey McGuire here in about 10 minutes for a live interview. But first, I want to go to Director of Recruiting here at Rivals, Chad Simmons. We got Chad. Welcome to signing day, Chad. How you doing? How you feeling?
Doing well, man. Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome. Know you've been tracking some big stories, and I want to start with another Georgia Vandy battle. We got Blake Stewart, former Clemson commitment, defensive back. Blake Stewart was thought to be maybe trended towards Georgia, but after all the fireworks yesterday, Blake Stewart's name has been coming up with Vanderbilt. What's the latest as of this morning?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple different sources there that still favor Georgia, obviously in-state school, but I'm also told by both that this is not done, not 100%. Georgia, I'm told that even Miami's trying to hang in there, but I'm told it's basically Vanderbilt versus Georgia, and the offers, I was told, continue to go quote unquote up and up. So I know Vanderbilt is trying hard to compete with Georgia, the in-state school. They're using obviously the academics, the brand of football under Clark Lee, what they're doing in Nashville from a branding standpoint. They also have, an ace in their pocket of CJ Hurd, a starting safety there, played at Woodward Academy, a close friend of Blake Stewart as well. But Georgia's still Georgia. Georgia's still the in-state program. Kirby Smart, multiple coaches have been involved with his recruitment, making it known that he's a priority and not just a want, but a need in that secondary at Georgia. And right now, things still point towards Georgia being the team to beat. But again, this is not done. It comes around 3:45 Eastern time today. And I'm told that he has not signed quietly an LOI and sent it in to Vanderbilt or Georgia or anybody else, but they're still working to make that final decision.
All right. Well, his recruitment still has about 5 hours to go. So if you guys want to get in on him, you got a little bit of time. You got more intel on some major storylines. I want to talk. Let's stay on the Georgia topic. Actually, PJ Dean been committed to them for a while. Elite defensive lineman from the state of North Carolina, been committed to Georgia. But here we go as South Carolina is putting the pressure on. What's the latest on him?
Yeah, I think they got him in this morning as far as signature. And so I think Georgia can kind of close their eyes and take a sigh of relief. But look, South Carolina put the pressure on Georgia, got him in for a visit over the weekend against Clemson. And he ended up staying the night in Columbia. And obviously Georgia, they knew that Carolina was not going to go away the same way. Michigan knows they're not going away for a guy like Julian Walker. So they're going to battle, and they did. But in the end, he ended up staying with Georgia. He was a huge, need and want for Georgia, being the style of player he is, an athletic guy, 6'3", pushing 270, kind of fits that edge role in their defensive scheme. So they really had, high hopes for him in the future. So them locking him in and getting him signed this morning was big.
Yeah, definitely big. Have you heard anything on Landon Duckworth? Do we know if he signed?
Just like Steve said to me, I've checked with guys at Jackson High School, also Duckworth himself and other schools. He has not signed. I was just told through text that, and even I'll say this, Landon last night to me directly, talking with him late last night, he told me that he may not sign today at all. I know Steve's hearing other things too from the Carolina side and his sources there, but he told me there were still things being worked out in his words, quote unquote, with South Carolina. I'm sure that's NIL related and what he needs to kind of, stay committed and be a part of this class. I mean, his words to me was, again, last night late, that I am signing with South Carolina. It may not be Wednesday. It might be Thursday. We're working through some things. But look, we know he was one time a lean to Ole Miss, almost committed there to Ole Miss. Yeah. He knows Kiffin, quarterback development, has relationships. Like Steve said, they haven't signed a quarterback. If they go this year, it'll be 2 cycles in a row from the high school level. So he knows he can go in and compete early and be developed by a guy like Lane Kiffin. But trust me, Beamer and those guys are not going down easily. He's been their guy twice, committed to him. They want to close strong, if not today, then tomorrow with Landon Duckworth.
All right. Now, how about Carson Baker? He's a guy that came off the board. He decommitted from the University of Florida just about 48 hours ago. So a new name out on the market. What's the latest on Carson Baker?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to have me on the show every 5 minutes, I can probably tell you a different school feels good about Carson Baker every 5 minutes. I mean, talking to people, look, A&M has kind of come out of nowhere in the last 24, 36 hours. He had a deep Zoom call with Texas A&M late last night. They're very much in play there. One source at a different school told me they think he could easily go back to Florida, when he signs on Thursday morning. So, look, there's confidence in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. South Carolina has been perceived as the favorite once he decommitted from Florida. So, look, he's going to go to Florida, back to Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, or Texas A&M. He signs around this time tomorrow morning. We should know. But I'll say this. I still lean towards North Carolina, South Carolina with A&M making this late surge, man. It's hard for me seeing him go back to Florida after decommitting just 36 hours or so ago. Yeah. He's had multiple talks with John Sumrall since then. Sumrall told him that he'll do whatever it takes to get him back, at the Swamp as a Gator. Again, he don't know a lot about Sumrall. He has great relationships with South Carolina. His old teammate Xavier Toe was a one-time A&M commit. He's been there 3 or 4 times. It's been a while since going to College Station, but they're very much involved too. But then Natron Means, Bill Belichick, those guys in Chapel Hill, they think they have something cooking also with Carson Baker. So a lot of options there as he figures this thing out down the stretch.
All right. We got about 3 minutes till Joey McGuire is expected in. I want to talk a little bit about North Carolina. They're a sneaky name, despite the season's trials and tribulations, all the rumors swirling about Bill Belichick and his staff. Carson Baker's not the only one that North Carolina has a shot at right now, is it, Chad?
No, I think we like some guys in the trenches there too. I mean, I think starting with Deron Parks, one-time Florida State commit, opened things back up here recently. He'll announce today, and I was told last night from a source that one really got kind of locked in last night with North Carolina. So we've liked them since he decommitted, but I like him even more now after getting that call late last night. But he's an O-lineman that played down in Florida the last couple of years, moved back to West Virginia. This year, other schools have been involved, but UNC is favored there. Also, a big move we think they're going to make here really any minute is Bodney Cleveland, a Texas D-line commit from Alabama, 4-star kid from Parker High School in Birmingham. Has been trending. Steve and I moved our picks from Texas to UNC on the Rivals prediction machine a few days ago. We feel even better about that decision now and about that pick there. So look, the chance to play, and we know UNC is playing the big rev share NIL game. They're going to sign 40 plus high school kids in this class. Something that's crazy. Can you build a team that fast with half a team out of high school in 1 year? Some think it should be more portal driven on those kind of numbers, but either way, they're going all in with the high school kids this year. They can make a big flip here any minute, pulling one from Steve Sarkisian in Texas all the way to Chapel Hill in 4-star D lineman Bodney Cleveland.
Yeah, that's a bit of a shocker there. Any other storylines, any other recruitments that you're still tracking right now that you think fans need to know about?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to watch Amari Latimer. Right around the same time, Blake Stewart signs or announces today around 3:45, 4 o'clock. Sandy Creek has their ceremony for all their guys to sign the paperwork. And like Steve Wilfong alluded to this morning, West Virginia is making a big push here. I was told by somebody about an hour ago that Miami is out, Tennessee is out. It's basically stay at Wisconsin, where his brother plays safety, or go to West Virginia. They're giving him a lot to think about, making a big NIL push. Look, Miami has worked hard to stay in this, but a credible source close to Latimer told me that it's going to be one of 2 schools, either Wisconsin or West Virginia.
I thought it would be one of 2 schools, Tennessee or Miami. I didn't think that Wisconsin stood a chance there, but now
I was going into yesterday thinking it was one of 2 schools, Miami or Wisconsin. And here we are now, Wisconsin or West Virginia. Miami's made him a priority. They want to add a second back in this class. They weren't getting Derek Cooper. He was staying with Texas. They tried with other guys, Jalen Marr staying with Georgia, things like that. And they made him a focal point this last 6 to 8 weeks. And a lot of people around his circle thought they were the team to beat, even over Wisconsin the last 72 hours or so. And then now West Virginia has made a big push. Credit to Steve there for being on top of that one. But right now, again, I'm told from a credible source there, that's either stay with Wisconsin or flip to West Virginia. Nobody else is in play. Can things change between now and 3:45? Of course, this is recruiting. But right now, West Virginia has the best chance to change his mind.
Wow, that's shocking to me. But today is signing day, and we are full of shocking developments. So thank you, Chad. We'll bring you back in, but that's a lot of intel and a lot of moving pieces right now on National Signing Day. Appreciate you, Chad.
Significant prediction over here.
Okay.
Landon Duckworth continue to work the phone lines over here, collab with some teammates here, and I like LSU right now for Landon Duckworth.
Okay.
A big quarterback flip on signing day. We had one yesterday.
Don't call it a flip yet. It's not.
I said on the verge. I was going to say we're on the verge of another, so we'll just have to sit tight. But while we do that, let's bring in Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire. Coach, how is signing day treating you today?
Man, it was awesome. We signed some dudes, man. We're fired up around here, and that's one thing that I wanted to make sure that our staff in this class felt how fired up we are about today and the guys that we brought in.
Coach McGuire, good to see you, man. Congrats on
What's
this,
up, man. Good to see you, bro.
Hey, when did LaDainian Guyton become real for the Red Raiders, and what do you love about his talent level?
You know, the biggest, I think, that he really became real is whenever he came out here to camp. You know, and we got to see him in person. But then he turned around and got to see us. And, you know, quite frankly, I think he's proven it on the field. But CJIU is, if not the best, one of the best outside linebacker / defensive end coaches in the country. Romello Height and David Bailey are having career years. I mean, it's not even close to what they're doing this year of what they've done at any point that they were in college. And I think he saw that, you know, and he fits what we do. He reminds me so much of Romello Height right now, his body type and the way he plays. And so we're so fired up that we got him, and it was great to see him. We FaceTimed him this morning as soon as we got all the paperwork in, and man, it was great to see him. He's fired up.
Coach McGuire, happy signing day. I love the
Thank you, brother.
blazer. It's looking
Good
fresh.
to see you, man. Hey, I also got in honor of Mike Leach. I mean, tip to the pirate, man. So,
That's
beautiful.
awesome.
Yes, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
awesome. Swinging your sword. I love it, Coach. Got a question for you about just your process when it comes to how you put this class together, especially on the eval side. Obviously, your GM, James Blanchard, one of, if not the best in the business. You guys go about that process a little bit differently. For those that are out of the loop, maybe explain that to the people at home that are watching right now as to how you put this top 20 class together.
Yeah, you know, just whenever I was at Baylor, you know, there'd be a process, and old school process of like, you know, you'd have a recruiting department that would put things on your desk of these are the guys that you need to look at, and it needs to be done by this certain day. And then the coordinator is looking at it, and then it would go to the full group, or it would go to the head coach, you know, and I just thought that system was so flawed for a lot of reasons. Number one, it took forever. If certain coaches never got to the guys that they were supposed to watch, then we were behind in offering kids. And then one of the biggest deals that bothered me was maybe I liked a guy a lot, and then the DC didn't. And then it kind of stopped there. So then my point was, well, why am I watching the film? Let the DC watch everybody, and that's who we'll go off of. And so what we do is we have a personnel department, and they watch film constantly, 24/7. That's their sole job, is to find players. And basically they're saying, here's who we're recruiting. Now, the coaches watch them and everything like that, but they don't have the final say. The guy that has the final say is James Blanchard. And the guy that, you know, whenever I talked to him, I said, the only person that can tell you no in this building is me. And he and I are so like-minded when it comes to players. There's been very few times that I've ever said, no, I don't think that's the guy we should go on. And so the process is totally different than the old school recruiting that I felt slowed everything up.
Coach, had a question about, you know, this new era, or as Steve Wiltfong would call it, modern recruiting.
Yeah.
What makes in this era a great recruiter? What makes a great recruiter?
Well, I think somebody that can really, I still believe in creating the relationships, and it's just not with the player. The challenge that we have for our coaches is, you know, how well do you know the parents? How well do you know the stakeholders? You know, the high school coach or a position coach, and just don't text the player or call the player. Be talking to the parents, you know, and like whenever we signed Luke Hamilton today, a corner out of the New Bronzeville area. And the one thing his mom said was, well, this one school X is trying to flip him, and I've never talked to anybody on their staff. And she goes, I talk to Darcel McBath once a week on how my son's doing, how his grades are, everything like that. And so I think that's what makes a great recruiter. I mean, you got to understand, man, it's 24/7. If you're not talking to them, somebody is. And so you've got to do a great job, and you've got to have a system. And I think we have a really good system in place to recruit these players.
Coach, as you boast the number 4 offense in college football and number 6 defense in college football, ready to make some noise in the conference title game and beyond, this was kind of your vision for this program when you took over, but it took a lot of investment of your own time to rally resources to put Texas Tech in position to go into the Peach State and land a 5-star edge rusher, LaDamian Guyton. Talk about the legwork and how you had to rally infrastructure to put Texas Tech in position to be a force on the financial front, to take care of players, to build this program into a championship contender.
Well, you know, we're extremely lucky. Like in the background of the slide you're showing, it's our stadium. And on the field, it says Cody Campbell Field. And whenever you have a guy, his dad played offensive line here. He played offensive line here. His partner, John Sellers, played here. They played high school football together. And so whenever you have a guy like that, I walk into a building every day that's the Wamble Football Center. We have a Wamble Basketball Center. That's Dusty Wamble. Whenever you have donors that are so active, both of those guys are on the Board of Regents here, then you have a great opportunity to get the financial backing that you need to compete in the world of college athletics today. And that was the thing this year. You know, we knew the pressure we have on us. We still have a lot of pressure on us. We embrace the pressure and appreciate it. I'd much rather be in this position than a position with no pressure on you. But we, as Texas Tech, as a football program, we pushed all our chips in, and we went out and signed an incredible high school class, an incredible transfer portal class. And then now the deal is do it again. And we did it today in signing a great class and got some freaks. I mean, you look at Guyton, you look at Felix, you go on and on with this class. We got some really special players, and it is because we have great financial backing.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you got a great class built. You know, it's been fun covering Texas Tech recruiting. It's been fun, not just for us, but for Texas Tech fans as well. And I've never talked as much Texas Tech recruiting as I have since you've taken over the program. And it doesn't look like we're going to stop anytime soon. Already pressing for the number 1 class in 2027. Congratulations on this class. We'll be glad to talk to you next year, hopefully about the number 1 class in America. So go enjoy your day, and we appreciate you for taking the time to stop by the Rivals Recruits channel.
Man, I appreciate you guys. I love what you do. You know, I'm a huge fan. Y'all keep doing it. And man, one thing I want to say, man, it's such a blessing for every kid that's signing today, man. Enjoy the day. It's such a big deal. It's an honor whenever you get the opportunity to put your name on a scholarship paper and know that your education is being paid for. So, man, to all the families out there, man, and all the players, just enjoy the day. It's a great day for college football and a great day for some incredible families around this country.
It is, and we appreciate you stopping by.
Wreck 'em.
There it is. JD, obviously recruiting fuels a program,
Sure.
But when you're in a place where Texas Tech is at, how do they go from, you know, not having he got them that traction on the recruiting trail, but it starts on the field.
Starts on the field, but I want to go back to just what we had in that interview with Coach McGuire. I think in today's modern college football, it's such a big deal to look a certain way on camera and, you know, operate a certain way on social media. Like who we just had in the interview with Coach McGuire, like that's who he is. And so I think there's a lot with Texas Tech on the financial backing and how they attack the portal and all that. But like when you get in between those 4 walls in Lubbock, like he is as genuine and authentic as they come. I was a preferred walk-on grad transfer wide receiver at Baylor. You would have thought I was about to start day 1, 5-star plus kind of guy, the way that he was talking to me. So you go to war for him because you know he'll go to war for you.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Steve, you guys got a great relationship. What is it about Coach McGuire? What is it about his program that attracts top recruits?
Well, you saw his energy right there. And he is a head coach that loves building relationships with his players. And that starts during the recruiting process on the trail, getting to know them as young men, getting to know their parents. He's the old high school football coach at Cedar Hill, a legendary high school coach in the Lone Star State that within that has a lot of relationships across Texas, and so many members of his coaching staff do as well. And that's kind of where they started foundationally, being out in front, offering top players in the state early. And that resonated with high school coaches and kids and their families. Their personnel department that he spoke of, they focused in-state. They weren't afraid to put the first offer on the table for a talented prospect. And that also helps you get ahead with the prospect you covet, starting to build that relationship. And they don't shortchange the relationship. It's authentic. And so these prospects feel comfortable with Texas Tech. Then you add the support, the opportunities on and off the field in modern recruiting with NIL. Texas Tech is as armed and ready as any program in the country, and that has now allowed them to extend their reach out of state for a prospect or two like LaDainian Guyton, who Georgia was still trying to recruit all the way up till the end. So they have the resources to go win LaDainian Guyton, but most of those guys on the list that you're looking at are homegrown talents that have the best relationship with Texas Tech. They also have good NIL opportunities. And this is a top 20 recruiting class. They're pushing for number 1 in 2027. And the other thing Texas Tech did to build themselves into a title contender this year is they had one of the best transfer portal classes in the country last year. And that's where you see those resources and support and infrastructure from a money standpoint that's going to help Texas Tech. If they have a deficiency on their roster, they're going to be able to be very competitive in the transfer portal. And there's already buzz that they're going to be in the mix for a big-time quarterback in the portal because of some of the injuries that they've had on their roster at the position. Because from a talent standpoint, they've been loaded at quarterback. That's also a big secret sauce to their program. You can't win a lot of games if you don't have the guy under center. And they have 2 guys that could start just about anywhere in the country in Morton and Hammond. Now they're going through some injuries. They got Kavian Bryant committed in 2027. So we'll see if they have to go get one of these top arms in the portal. And we know that they're armed and ready. And those kids are also going to see proof in the pudding, number 4 offense, number 6 defense, and a head coach that loves his players.
All right. Since I got you, Steve, want to talk. Mater Dei is probably beginning their signing ceremony. Now, at Mater Dei High School, you're going to have over a dozen athletes signing letters of intent right now. So this thing could take a while, but what is the latest buzz on Chris Henry Jr. after seeing that Brian Hartline news?
Well, I think that even before the Brian Hartline news hit the press, there's always worry. Even if they felt like Chris Henry was saying the right things, that he's going to send in his letter of intent, that he could flip. Oregon is never going to stop recruiting him.
Right? Like, this is kind of big news.
Right.
Position coach is leaving.
That's all developing on that front. But Oregon was always in the mix. USC is a program that could be trying to set up a late National Signing Day surprise. So those programs, I think Ohio State still views them as potential hurdles to get Chris Henry and his papers in.
Wow. So on the final day, they could end up losing both of their star wide receivers out of California. Kaylen Dixon Wyatt, you still feel good about him flipping to USC?
He already did. Hayes Fawcett reported that Kaylen Dixon Wyatt is a Trojan.
Wow. Big flip. There it is. Kaylen Dixon Wyatt is a Trojan. What do you think, JD? What do you think? You know, you are a Southern Cal guy, number 1 class in America right now for Lincoln Riley and the boys. You know, it hasn't been an easy ride at USC, but this number 1 class makes it look good.
You know, one of the things that sticks out to me, Josh, about this class, a lot of SoCal kids.
Yes.
That's a big reason why they were able to hang on to this class, because last year you're talking about having some commits from the Southeast, and it's hard to date long distance, man. It's not easy to jump on the FaceTime when there's several hours ahead of you in the time zone, all those things, but like to have it be locked down in the state of California, especially that southern part, there's enough talent there to go win at a really high level. And so to see Lincoln Riley and Chad Bowden, the new GM over there from Notre Dame, doing a great job in his first year, to see them prioritize that and make that a point of this class, I think it's a massive reason why you're seeing them where they're at in the rankings. And also, too, speaking to a school like Mater Dei, flipping a Kaylen Dixon Wyatt, like when USC is humming, they have a great pipeline between them and Mater Dei. You think about Matt Leinart, think about Matt Barkley. Like when the Trojans are rolling, it's usually because they got a good foot in the door out there at Mater Dei.
Yeah, it is amazing to see the way that they kind of reconfigured the class. Last year, they went after all those top players in the state of Georgia. Nearly every single one of them ends up decommitting. So let's switch it up. Let's bring in the SoCal kids. Let's bring in the other California kids. And this is what happens. I mean, they still recruit nationally, hands down.
Sure.
I mean, look at Luke Wafle. That's a big recruitment. Steve, let's go back through that Luke Wafle deal. I remember the night before He committed on this channel. I'm checking, we like to get the graphics ready. So I'm checking with the agent the night before. And he's like, well, where do you think he's going? I go, I think we need USC graphics. And he just started laughing at me and said it wasn't USC. He didn't say it was Ohio State, but obviously that was the kind of the inference there. Steve, how back and forth was the Luke Wafle commitment in the final 72 hours?
Well, obviously you started setting the table there for Luke Wafle, Rivals #1 ranked edge rusher, one of the biggest recruiting wins of the cycle, USC, adding him to a class physically ready to play day one for Lincoln Riley, Coach Henney and company. And he went out to USC for his official visit and left giving Coach Riley and Coach Henderson his verbal when he was making his phone calls to tell the other coaches that he was going to be a Trojan. These schools were like, not so fast. I think Luke Wafle was the #1 overall player on Ohio State's board, and they did everything they could to flip him to Ohio State, and they did. He did flip to Ohio State behind the scenes, and he was going to be a Buckeye by the time he was going to announce. But then USC, Chad Bowden and company came even stronger. And look, you're not even in these discussions if you don't have a product that these kids believe in, the opportunity to be developed, to play on the big stage, to play in the biggest games, to hear your name called early in the NFL draft. So you don't get a seat at the table in the Luke Wafle sweepstakes unless you can prove that. And Eric Henderson, USC's defensive line coach, he coached Aaron Donald in the NFL. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's brought Aaron Donald and NFL players that he's coached out to practice. So there is a pedigree there. Larry Johnson and his pedigree at Ohio State, and certainly what the Buckeyes have been able to do. So he flips to the Buckeyes behind the scenes. USC fights back, gets it back in their favor, either the night before or the morning of. I kind of forget all the intricacies of that. Meanwhile, Penn State probably made their biggest financial NIL offer in the history of the James Franklin era. His older brother plays for Penn State. They gave the family something to think about. And North Carolina and Bill Belichick, we already know they are putting it out there from an NIL standpoint for top targets. They did that for Luke Wafle as well. But in the end, it was USC, the combination of modern recruiting and a place where he feels like he can be developed to be the best player he can be. They're building brand new, amazing facilities for that USC football program. It's LA. It's 78 degrees and sunny every day. Look, there were a lot of reasons why I picked USC, but make no mistake about it, modern recruiting was a very pivotal part of that process, and it was wild, and it was kind of exciting to follow. And it's kind of, what is your threshold for a high school recruit? When you're a head football coach, how much am I willing to pay an 18-year-old true freshman? And he walks into this locker room and he instantly becomes one of the top 2 or 3 highest paid players on the team, if not the highest paid player on the team. And there's some general managers in these college offices and coaches that have pointed towards, well, it's like paying a first-round draft pick. He might join your NFL team, and he's not your best NFL player as a rookie, but by year 2 or 3, he is your best player, so we're giving him franchise money. But still within that, what is your threshold for a guy? How does it stack up with the rest of your locker room? Well, USC was able to go to a different level.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So we're going to continue to follow this one. I'm expecting news here in the next 10 or 15 minutes because, like I said, the Modern Day signing was expected to start 15 minutes ago. Things kind of run late. It's chaotic. We'll check back in on Modern Day out in California. But I want to talk a little Michigan recruiting because we got a couple storylines we're following. We talked Julian Walker, the elite edge who's maybe going to flip. We'll see. But also, wide receiver Zion Robinson said he is holding off on signing today. Steve, I'm going to come to you in a minute, but last year at this time, it was all about Bryce Underwood. That's what we were talking about, the Bryce Underwood, #1 quarterback flipping. JD, this is what's great about signing day. We get to see these elite players so quickly on the field. What did you make of Bryce Underwood's freshman season?
You know what I've said for a while here on this show, Josh, because it's easy to throw stones and say, well, he hasn't been worth whatever they were paying him from an NIL perspective. They're not giving him, he's not worth the $12 million.
Forget the money.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Forget the money. He's a true freshman. Right. The kid just turned 18 before the season. So my take is Bryce Underwood is still the future at Michigan. He's just the first one there. Like, there's not the receivers to maximize Bryce Underwood yet. They played like 6 freshmen on the offensive side of the football against Ohio State. The offense is still, I think, evolving under Chip Lindsey to get to what they want to be. So
what would you want to see it be with Bryce Underwood?
I just see some more weapons. I mean, I see one of your best receivers being a true freshman. Like, not really the best sign in the world. It's not the best position for success for a true freshman quarterback. So I think all in all, like, I understand the thought of, well, it hasn't lived up to expectations. Well, I think your expectations maybe were a little bit misplaced to begin with. If you thought Bryce Underwood was going to come in and lead Michigan to the #1 seed in the college football playoff and win the Heisman Trophy his first year on campus.
Yeah, Michigan needs to be able to throw the football, and that's why the news today about wide receiver Zion Robinson holding off. I mean, why would a high school wide receiver not want to sign with Michigan today?
Look, these young men are going through different processes for each of them. But you look at this Michigan class, it starts with Savion Hyder, #1 running back in America, committed to Michigan over Ohio State and Tennessee, among others, particularly the Vols. And he maintains the identity of this program. I would imagine that the Wolverines are going to be as active as any program in the country in the portal at wide receiver. And the first person that comes to mind is Nick Marsh from Michigan State, an in-state recruit in the portal. Just announced that he was in the portal, former 4-star recruit. It's easy to already put him on watch as someone that Michigan's going to go after. I think they'll try and land a couple more difference makers in the portal. They actually struggled to land top portal guys out of the portal at wide receiver this last cycle. That'll be one of the heaviest positions for them, and really one of the most pivotal positions for any program in the country as far as playoff contenders. Can Michigan elevate the dynamic playmaking ability in their wide receiver room? I know they're excited about guys like Andrew Marsh and some of the true freshmen that they have, but they need grown-ups, immediate difference makers, guys that have made a difference for other programs.
Okay, well, let's stay on Michigan. Besides Julian Walker, maybe you have some latest intel on Julian Walker, but who else and what is in play for Michigan as it stands right now?
Well, Julian Walker getting his papers in is the big thing. They obviously hosted Salisi Moa, Rivals top 100 recruit, committed to Tennessee, an athlete. I don't know if Salisi's papers are in for Tennessee or not, but Michigan was someone that was trying to make a late push, has a great relationship with Coach Lamar Morgan. In Utah, hosted him 2 weeks before that, a legacy recruit for the Utes. So I thought he was going to end up at Utah for much of his process, but Tennessee, top 10 recruiting class, they were able to get Salisi in the fold. I was not hearing much Michigan buzz for Salisi this morning on that front.
Okay, so we will continue to watch that. Now, I just got word from our own Greg Biggins that the Mater Dei signing is running behind. So it seems like 8:15 Pacific time. We were expecting maybe in the 7:30 range, which we're well beyond that at this point. It just now started. So we should have news on, and like I said, Mater Dei is going to have more than a dozen prospects signed. I doubt Chris Henry Jr. would be the first to sign in that group, but I'm not seeing the order, so we'll have to wait and find out. You got,
Just talking about Zion Robinson, Sam Spiegelman with an update on the site. Michigan commit from Mansfield, Texas. Longhorns picking up steam to keep him in state and add to their top 10 class.
Yeah, he is an in-state Texas wide receiver, and we've seen some in-state Texas wide receivers get out. Caden Finley go into Notre Dame. You know, we've seen Zion Robinson got out. At the time, it didn't seem like Texas was all that involved, but now maybe circling back on a couple of names. Speaking of circling back on a name, how could we not? I failed to ask you about Zion Elee, the #1 pass rusher in America. There was some buzz yesterday that he was maybe considering South Carolina, who, you know, a couple years ago, they landed Dylan Stewart. Zion Elee, much in that same mold, but he has been, for the most part, rock solid to Maryland since his commitment. Steve, what's the latest on Zion Elee? Has he sent in a letter of intent?
Have not seen any data on the web that Zion Elee has signed his letter of intent. It also looks like he has changed his agency, as he posted that last night, signing at 1 p.m. today. There didn't seem to be much confidence around Columbia yesterday. Maybe that's a smokescreen. They obviously hosted him this fall. South Carolina and Maryland have had some slobber knockers on the recruiting trail in the past. It's one of the more undercover, funny recruiting rivalries out there, as South Carolina likes to pound the DMV. And I've seen a kid commit to one school for a long time, flip to the other the day before, only to flip back the next day just for the theatrics of the flip within that recruiting rivalry. So we'll see what happens in another one with Zion, Elee, South Carolina, and Maryland. But Mike Loxley obviously went hardcore about Zion, Elee on a recent broadcast, and my intel has been favoring Maryland, but we'll see what happens.
All right, so
we're the Terps, huh?
Yeah, that's huge.
Hanging on.
Hey, if Mike Loxley's going to succeed at Maryland, he's got to land the best talent within those borders. So he's working on that. So we'll see what happens there. Another big name that we were chasing was KJ Ford, the Florida Gator commitment. He's a pass rusher from the state of Texas. KJ Ford, though, flirting with Texas A&M. I think that would be
with Florida today. So the Gators, the new staff got it done. I think when there was some mystery and some doubt around who would lead this Florida program, KJ Ford took 3 visits to Texas A&M. Now, the first one was so he could take the second one. I think Texas A&M was like, look, we're not going to bring you in for the Florida game unless you show that you have some interest in the Aggies. So he came to the Auburn game. Then he went to the Florida game. Then he came back again later in the fall. It looked like he was trending Texas A&M, said all the right things, but the new Florida coaching staff, Coach Summerall and company, get in there, started hearing some buzz last night that he could stick with Florida, and ultimately he puts pen to paper for the Gators, a twitchy edge rusher out of the Lone Star State. Originally picked Florida over Alabama. Second time picks Florida over Texas A&M.
Okay. We're going to pause on the breaking news. I want to talk a little Oregon recruiting because the grass is damn green in Eugene. We're going to have Dan Lanning on the show in about 25 or 30 minutes. I saw that Emmanuel Iheanacho, the big man out of Baltimore, Maryland, the number 3 ranked offensive tackle in America, has sent in his letter of intent. Not that that was ever really up for grabs, but he's in. I believe Jet Washington has already sent his in. I don't think there's any real drama. Do you, Steve, when it comes to Oregon commitments?
No, I think that getting Jalen locked in on his visit for the last home game of the season was big for Oregon. Hadn't heard anything about Anthony Tank Jones ending up elsewhere. I think Oregon, the way that they build relationships with their top recruits, and then certainly the infrastructure and resources they have behind them, these kids that commit to them understand what it is on and off the field. And so you don't see much turnover with Oregon commits.
What's the latest on Tank Jones? He's out of the state of Alabama. It seems like there's not a lot of drama, but people just expect because he's from the South, he made a couple visits. What's going on with Anthony Tank Jones? Do we have a letter of intent in for him?
I haven't seen, but he visited Oregon twice this fall, including their second to last home game. And I have not heard any indication that he's on flip watch. Talking to sources around Eugene, I think everybody felt good about him sticking with the Ducks. All
right. One prospect that we certainly did not talk enough about on this channel is Kendre Harrison out of North Carolina, 6'6", 250-pound tight end. Steve, I've had coaches tell me early in the cycle that Kendre Harrison was probably the best football player in America, regardless of position.
Yeah, I've echoed that. He is a dominant football player on both sides of the ball, had over 2,600 yards receiving in his high school career, 49 touchdowns, and then he's just a menace off the edge as well. 53 tackles for loss, 22 and a half career sacks. He's got the traits to be a difference maker in Oregon's offense that likes to feature the tight end. He's a mismatch waiting to happen at 6'7", 235 pounds. And he's also an outstanding basketball player that's going to hit the hardwood in Eugene as well. One of the unique players in the country, one of the unique two-way players, just a gifted athlete and someone that I think will be a star for Oregon.
Yeah, and congratulations to Kendre Harrison. He has been committed for 1 year and 3 days. Give it up for Kendre Harrison and his rock-solid commitment. I don't even think we talked about him in terms of taking another visit, so that's kind of crazy. JD, what do you make of the Will Stein news? And, you know, it's one of those double-edged swords. If you want to be successful, these are kind of, this is the repercussions of having a great program. But where does Oregon go from here? What does it mean immediately for their playoff run? Do you think he coaches? What's going on?
Yeah, you'd like to think he's going to finish coaching. I mean, between him and Tosh Lapoy taking the Cal job, Oregon's got 2 different coordinators moving and shaking, taking head coaching jobs. But I think where I fall in this, Josh, is I just trust Dan Lanning. And also, this isn't his first time having to replace a coordinator. Remember correctly, he had Kenny Dillingham as his OC when he got to Eugene.
Good point.
Kenny Dillingham takes the job at ASU. Who do I grab? Well, I don't know. Will Stein. You get 2 separate Heisman Trophy finalists in Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel. So at the end of the day, I think if you're an Oregon fan, similar to how you feel about if you're a Georgia fan or if you are an Ohio State fan, like you trust who the head coach is. As long as Dan Lanning's the guy, I think they're going to be in good shape, and I trust him to make a good hire when it comes to the next OC. Would imagine it's in a similar vein, up-tempo, spread, get the ball out quick kind of flavor, but imagine it's still going to be a very high-potent offense.
Yeah. Steve, how influential were the coordinators into recruiting at Oregon? And are those guys, how vital is it for Dan Lanning to replace those guys with great recruiters?
Well, it's top to bottom operation at Oregon, and Tosh Lupoy, as well as anyone, is one of the best recruiters in the country. He's had that reputation for a long time. And then Will Stein was someone that was very involved with Oregon, obviously, particularly at the quarterback position, but offense in general. So Dan Lanning's not, he asks everybody to recruit. It's the heartbeat of the program. He leads from the front, but counts on his assistant coaches to be part of the process. Certainly they have a army led by Marshall Malkow off the field, but those coordinators, they put in their work and invested, and Tosh Lupoy had his hands on every defensive recruit that Oregon recruited. And so replacing those guys, I imagine, will be a trait that Dan Lanning is looking for as he makes his replacement hires.
All right. We're going to pause on Oregon. We will have Dan Lanning hopefully in about 20, 30 minutes here, but we got some developing news coming out of Columbus. Steve, Ohio State has not received a letter of intent from Legend Bay, and there are some concerns that Tennessee could be involved here.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I am still working the phone lines on that end right now. But Legend Bay obviously was committed to Tennessee for a long time, nearly chose Texas A&M. That was a bit of a back and forth behind the scenes that Tennessee ultimately won out for. Came and took a visit to Ohio State during the season, had a great relationship with Carlos Loughlin. Ohio State looking to use him as a running back, slot, wide receiver, return man. They have a lot of opportunity for him and his 10-2 speed. He's one of the more electric players in the country. But Tennessee, they didn't give up on him the first time around when it looked like he was going to flip to Texas A&M, and it sounds like they're not giving up on him again when it comes time to put pen to paper for the Buckeyes.
Yeah, our own Pete Nakos reporting Tennessee in negotiations with Legend Bay along with Ohio State. So I'm assuming that's not just negotiations about playing time.
Sure. I don't think it's just about minutes. Might be a little bit more with the
not just negotiating about jersey numbers.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Yeah. But from a football side too, if we're going to go ahead and just overanalyze that part of it, you look at Tennessee's offense, you look at how they run the football. They're consistently one of the best units in the country doing that. I mean, you're consistently running into light boxes. Like if I'm Legend Bay and I want to play running back somewhere, Ohio State's obviously phenomenal. But Tennessee in that scheme, put up big numbers, might not be the worst thing in the world. So interesting thing to track.
Or here. Texas A&M, or I mean, it's getting crazy. Steve, how often are these negotiations going down to the wire like this, like with Legend Bay here?
Well, I'm not saying that's exactly what's happening with Legend Bay right now.
Nakos is reporting that.
Okay, got it. Well, then what I would say to that is a lot of kids across the country are fielding financial offers or new throw the kitchen sink at a top prospect offer at the end, because when you do it at the end, it's hard for the other program to counter. So saving their best punch for last. And there were even schools making random calls to recruits they barely had a relationship with, trying to flip guys late at positions of need at the end of the cycle. And really the enticement more than anything is a bigger payday.
Right. And then you also, I think this is something that we're seeing. Not everybody, if you have 30 commits on a commit list, Steve, how many of those prospects are getting paid?
Well, I think that each program has their core guys at the top of their board that are certainly their high dollar guys.
Mhm.
And then there are a lot of guys getting money through the rev share and certainly getting more than the scholarship. And then there's certainly guys that are coming in for free that have to earn it on the field and earn more dollars with their play.
So some of these things are not just big dollar negotiations. Some of these could be a player like you're talking about, not coming in on a scholarship, but now on signing day being offered, 10, 20, 30,000, not the hundreds of thousands that we talk about, but that could be the difference maker in a recruitment.
I'm sorry, I was over here texting about Legend Bay. Hit me with that question again.
Well, we just got news. Hold on. We're just going to put a pause on that because we have Chris Henry news. I'm watching a video from Scott Schrader, and Chris Henry has officially signed with Ohio State.
Bang.
Not hard to see why this happens, Josh. Just with it being Ohio State, you look at Jeremiah Smith, you look at Carnell Tate, you look at what the Buckeyes have done at the receiver position when it comes to putting dudes in the league. Yeah, obviously the Brian Hartline piece of this makes it a little bit more anxiety-filled if you're a Buckeye. Is Chris Henry going to sign? What's going to happen with the hometown Trojans? And to see him put pen to paper, it's not hard to see why this ended up being the decision for my guy.
Yeah. Steve, though, who do you think had a better shot at flipping Chris Henry down the stretch, Oregon or USC?
I think people generally viewed Oregon as the threat, but didn't. I think people were also saying, well, USC has put together this terrific class. What do they have up their sleeve for Chris Henry Jr. at the end? But Oregon was widely considered the biggest competition. And I would imagine Brian Hartline emphasized to Chris Henry Jr. that the offense at Ohio State also allows these wide receivers to flourish and have so much success and develop them properly to be ready to make an impact in the NFL. But Chris Henry, been committed to Ohio State since 2023, certainly still went through a process. Programs were throwing the kitchen sink there at the end. I think he's one of the more valued financially guys in this class, and he is now officially an Ohio State Buckeye.
So, Steve, several years in a row now, we've sat at this desk, and Oregon makes a splash on signing day. It's Austin Novosad a couple of years ago. Last year, it's you and Chad Simmons getting the Naeem Offord news in real time. Is there some more fireworks here on deck for, or is this the Oregon flip fiasco maybe coming to, and like, was this the one they had circled here, Steve, or what's up the sleeve for Oregon?
Yeah, talking to sources around Oregon, landing Chris Henry and a couple defensive backs at the end was the rest of the work. It's a top 5 class. They have elite players on all levels of the offense and defense across the board. And so Chris Henry was the last big fish. They were shooting their shot. It just didn't come up Oregon this year.
Shoot.
All right. Well, we're hearing no letter of intent for Henry yet. Chris Henry announced that it was going to be Ohio State. We just want to dot our I's and cross our T's. And, a recruit can announce for a program. It only matters where he sends that letter of intent. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but we saw this happen with Jeremiah Smith.
Mm-hmm.
He announced at his ceremony that it was Ohio State. And then throughout the day, the questions kept coming. Did he send in his letter of intent? And then the answers we kept getting back was no. Of course, there was some drama there at the end. Maybe Miami was making some phone calls, but the letter of intent did get sent in to Ohio State in the end. So we'll keep watching this Chris Henry. But he did announce at his ceremony that it would be Ohio State. All right. Right now, we're going to send it over to Pete Nakos. Pete, Pete breaks a ton of news here, reports a lot on NIL in the business of college football. So we talked to him about the biggest NIL battles of the cycle. Let's see what Pete has to say.
Thanks so much, Josh. Let's get right into it. When you look at the 2026 recruiting cycle, you have to start it right off with the biggest NIL battles that shape the class. Let's get it going. You got USC edge commit Luke Wafle. He signed a 3-year, $2.4 million deal. He's going to make around $800,000 as a freshman. He's going to the West Coast. Ohio State, Penn State were right in it until the end. He's part of that #1 overall class for the Trojans. That includes tight end Mark Bowman, who's viewed as one of the bigger NIL packages of this cycle as well. Let's keep it moving. You got Jackson Cantwell, the Miami offensive tackle commit. Georgia was in the driver's seat. Ohio State was in it. Oregon. But he picks Miami on his commitment day. He's going to make over $2 million this year with the Hurricanes. Now you got to move on to Texas Tech here, Josh. You got Felix Ojo, an elite offensive tackle who picked the Red Raiders on July 4th. That's going to kind of stick out with us as we look back at this. Texas, Ohio State, there was a moment there where we thought both had a legit chance, but then you had Texas Tech come in. It was reported that it was a 3-year, $5.1 million deal, but he's actually going to make about $775,000 annually. So let's stick with Texas Tech. Joey McGuire, big cycle for him. LaDainian Guyton, an elite edge rusher, picks Texas Tech over Georgia, South Carolina, Tennessee, among others. He's going to make over $900,000 this year as a true freshman. And then you got to wrap it out with Tristan Keys. He's a Mississippi native. He was committed to LSU for so much of this cycle, but then he decommits, and then he ends up going to Tennessee. And that doesn't happen for the Volunteers if Savion Hyder, an elite running back, goes to Michigan, freeing up some cash for the Vols. So those are the top NIL battles, the top NIL deals of the cycle, Josh. That really is why we're sitting here today.
All right, there it was. Pete Nago's the great one. Steve, what do you got?
I got some more Legend Bay intel.
Let's go. Let's go.
Look, I think Legend Bay is fielding some pressure at the end of the process from Tennessee and West Virginia. The Mountaineers are swinging under Rich Rodriguez and the new coaching staff, getting a lot of support and backing to go out there and try and make plays for Amari Latimer, who I think Wisconsin is rising to the occasion again. They've had to hold off a lot of challenges for first-star running back Amari Latimer. But before we get into Amari Latimer, Legend Bay, I think he wants to be a Buckeye. And I think that he has indicated that to sources, but there is still some things that need to happen with his process for that to become official. And in the meantime, Tennessee and West Virginia are pushing.
Well, it sounds like, per Pete Nakos, the SMU and West Virginia are trying to juice this deal up, not with money, but by offering him the opportunity to play quarterback. That's something that he has done on the high school level. How much of a factor could that be in this decision? Do you think he's asking Ohio State for that, or is this just something that they're trying to maybe throw in at the last minute here?
Well, he's someone that Ohio State views as a weapon all over, kind of similar to how Curtis Samuel was used, but faster. Running back, slot receiver, wide receiver, widely used in the return game. When you're talking about Ohio State, they got the best quarterback in the country, or one of the best quarterbacks in America, year in and year out. Legend Bay is not going to play quarterback at Ohio State. So if that is something that he really would aspire to do, he would have to do it elsewhere. But I think he aspires to be a Buckeye right now. Okay. And I think that there are some things that they're working through on his side of the fence. And we'll see if that ultimately happens. But Tennessee and West Virginia are two programs that are in the equation down the stretch for Legend Bay.
Really, really interesting seeing SMU does not want to go away, JD, whether it's on the football field, in the playoff equation, and now on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, Josh, it's the classic SMU Ohio State recruiting battle. I mean, we see it every year. It's the Mustangs and the Buckeyes just going head to head for the top recruits in the cycle, and here we have it.
True blue blood battle here, but we'll see what happens.
Hey,
I mean, yeah,
we're here. Chris Henry may have said he's with Ohio State, but the papers aren't in yet. Did you just say that?
Yeah, no. Well, we kind of hit on that. I didn't want to make too big of a deal because I wasn't 100% sure if that was the case, but it seems like we're in another one of these Jeremiah Smith holding patterns until he actually signs the paper. You can commit verbally as many times as you want. It's not binding. The letter of intent is, but we'll see what happens there. We are going to be talking with Dan Lanning here shortly. We have who else? We had Joey McGuire. We're going to have James Franklin on the show. Steve, let's dip our toe into this Virginia Tech recruiting info, because outside of Ohio State in the last 14 days, Virginia Tech and James Franklin might be the hottest team on the recruiting trail.
Well, Virginia Tech, when James Franklin walked in the door in Blacksburg, they had the nation's number 118 recruiting class per rivals. Now they are at number 29 with some big fish still out there for Coach Franklin and company. So he hit the ground running with his recruiting staff that came over from Penn State. And these last 2 big visit weekends was a lot of just Coach Franklin entertaining 8 to 10 prospects and their families. Now, he certainly had some support, but he was the lead guy and obviously the right guy for that job. And a lot of these young men followed him from Penn State, but not all of them, to go out and get 4-star receiver Davian Brown to beat Maryland down the stretch. He's one of the more electric playmakers in the DMV. He is someone that has the traits to be instant impact. Thomas Wilder, a 4-star offensive tackle, bringing his recruitment full circle, a former Virginia Tech recruit that joins the fold for the Hokies. This is a class that can help Virginia Tech be competitive right away in the ACC, and that's the expectation with James Franklin and company. They're going to be active in the transfer portal. I expect them to be players in the month of January, bolstering the roster with some more veteran talent. But this foundationally is a terrific recruiting class, and already one that's in the top half of the ACC.
Yeah. JD, what do you love about James Franklin in Blacksburg?
One, I think the colors look cool on him. That's kind of one thing that sticks out right away. 2, what Steve was just saying about his ability to recruit, like a lot of those teams at Penn State that went on to win 10 games plus and be in the college football playoff like they were a year ago, a lot of those guys were put together from the DMV area. And so James Franklin, different colors I just mentioned. He's wearing them, they look sweet, but it's warm handshakes he's walking into.
I mean, he's a Maryland guy, right?
High school level. I mean, he's a guy that got roots in the DMV, absolutely.
Right. So I can't wait to see it. And then you juxtapose that, and we don't know how it's going to end, but you juxtapose the Virginia Tech James Franklin hiring to the Penn State situation, and it looks like Virginia Tech,
it's crumbling. It's crumbling, some are saying.
Yeah. What is the latest with Penn State? How do you read what's happening with Penn State?
I can't read it, Josh. It's not in English. I have no idea what's going on with Penn State, because you would have thought like, hey, is it one of those top names in the cycle floating around when, you're looking at all these big names that are ending up taking other jobs? And then Kalani Sitake, you zero in on him. He's the first name that really seems to crystallize for that job.
I mean, Matt Rule maybe before the season ended, but of course,
Signetti.
Yeah, they all came off the board.
Right. And then this pool opens up with Kalani Sitake, and you think that's going to happen. Right. And then he re-ups, and it sounds like Crumble Cookie maybe in some way, shape, or form was involved with the way they're involved with BYU. And so you're sitting here if you're Penn State. Now, Andy Staples said something on the Dan Patrick show yesterday I thought was really interesting. If you're Penn State, the reason why there hasn't been any noise potentially now, per Andy Staples, is maybe they're after a head coach that's in a conference title game. And this is obviously pre the Kalani Sitake news breaking, so maybe that was who Andy was speaking to. But it is a total palms up moment for me, Josh. I have no idea where they're going, no idea who they would go after. A lot of people that could make sense, but the later it goes, the less likely it feels that Penn State's going to land one of those top guys.
Yeah. What would be, I mean, how could Penn State save face here?
I would have said Brian Hartline a few hours ago.
But maybe is it an NFL hire? Would that do it? I mean, college football, though, is so based on recruiting,
Yeah, I think for me, what you just said about recruiting, like even looking at the teams that
Penn that's State's why you said Brian Hartline would be.
Brian Hartline would have excited me. Like I look at the games Penn State's lost to Ohio State and Michigan. Yeah, those games are close, but at the end of the day, I think Ohio State has beaten Penn State in large part because they've had better players. So who's going to show up in Happy Valley and get us as good of players to go compete with Ohio State would be my question. And I don't think an NFL hire necessarily checks that box for me.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Steve, we talked Virginia Tech, but what about Penn State recruiting? I mean, are they just kind of twisting in the wind today? Do they have any hopes of adding significant prospects, or are they just trying to hold on to what they can?
Well, I am told by Jackson Ford's representation that he is going to sign with Penn State. Loves the Nittany Lions program or just the Nittany Lions, Penn State atmosphere, environment, vibe, and Happy Valley, and obviously believes that Penn State will ultimately hire a good football coach. But just what a fascinating thing that is happening in State College. I forgot the job was open over the weekend.
They wanted you to forget that.
When Florida and Auburn and LSU were announcing their head coaches, my wife asked me who got Penn State, and I was like, oh man, I forgot about Penn State. And look, they fired James Franklin after 12 years. After week 6 this season, a coach that in the current landscape of college football, Penn State was in the New Year's Six discussion most years, which in the new landscape of a 12-team playoff puts you in the playoff discussion each year. They make the Final Four. I understand that Penn State's brass and fans thought that he couldn't win the big game. And after 12 years, they wanted to get someone in there that they thought could win the big game. But I think in the new playoff era, Penn State's a program that James Franklin would have had consistently in that discussion. But at the very least, they should have let him finish the season, and then reconvene. He deserved more than that for the 12 years that he put into that.
Great point.
And certainly if you're going to fire him midway through the season, you as an athletic director better be able to have some leads to get your next guy in there quickly. And obviously there's reports out there that have said that there's some hurdles to that because of the firing of James Franklin.
Oh, wow.
But if you keep James Franklin in the captain's chair through the season, he would have grinded it out like he always did at Penn State. And then maybe you have your discussion afterwards and say, Coach, it was a great 12 years that we had here. But I think it's time for both of us to go our separate ways. And then maybe your recruiting class hangs together a lot longer. This is a team that's very senior laden, a lot of veterans. They're going to have a lot of turnover on this roster as it is. They're going to have to they were going to have to hit the portal anyway, but now they don't even have a foundational recruiting class coming in. And then when you look at the contenders in college football, they're recruiting big recruiting classes. They're still building it up from the high school ranks. Penn State's basically not going to have a recruiting class because of this coaching change in 2026.
Because their inability to hire a coach, not because of the coach. The coaching change would have been fine.
Emotional decision after they lost to Northwest. I know they lost on the road at UCLA after the deflating loss to Oregon. Look, 3-3 coming off a Final Four. The expectations were high with what Penn State was bringing back to make a run at a national championship. But now they seem far away from that with the roster that's going to be returning and no recruiting class and no head coach. Now they could flip the script at any point, make a great hire. It's an amazing place. They have one of the best home field advantages in college football. They have one of the best fan bases in college football. They have a lot of tradition. They have great players in the NFL right now. So who they hire gets an opportunity to coach a program that we've seen be highly competitive, but he's now walking into a situation that almost mirrors where Penn State was at when they were going through scandal, because there's going to be a lot of roster turnover and their players can get in the portal soon. And they have no idea who's leading this football team next year.
Yeah.
They're one of the first jobs to become available, one of the first ones to jump into the pool, and they are currently the last one to make a splash and make a hire.
Well, you guys are college football geniuses. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. If you were the GM, or not the GM, but the AD of Penn State, or you were the one in charge of making the hire, and it doesn't have to be the connections, it doesn't have to be a Penn State guy. I want to know, with your knowledge of football and recruiting, who would you go out and target right now if you're Penn State?
Can I say someone unrealistic?
Yeah.
Someone that I'd love them to swing at. Yeah. Someone needs to swing at this guy.
I want to hear it.
Kenny freaking Dillingham would be awesome. Juice, excitement, energy. Talk about activating the Valley. How about you activate Happy Valley, Kenny Dillingham? Talk about just getting you fired up for a hire. Now, I don't know if there's any way in the world that would happen. It doesn't sound like he has any interest at all in leaving ASU. But talk about a hire that would get the people going, to be provocative. Kenny Dillingham to Penn State would feed families, and it would ignite my soul, Josh. I would love Kenny Dillingham.
I second.
Hey, really? There we go.
I would think that, Kenny Dillingham would be a fantastic hire. And he's the guy that we talked about on our shows during the season, Josh, of if you don't get Lane Kiffin, just cross his name off and put Kenny Dillingham in that same slot. You're getting an offensive mastermind that's a top head coach recruiter, in my opinion, a guy that would really flex on the trail as a head coach recruiter with a logo with the magnitude of Penn State.
All right. Those sound fun. You guys put it in the comments section below. If you were in charge of making the hire, you don't even have to be a Penn State fan. If you were in charge of making the hire at Penn State, who would it be? Tell us. Comment section below. All right. Can we head out west? Let's head out west. We have Greg Biggin, national analyst. Greg, making your debut here at the Rivals Recruits channel. Welcome aboard. Hadn't had a chance to talk to you yet, but hey, signing day is the perfect day to do it.
Hey, good to see you guys. Got my my energy drink. I'm ready to go. It's good to see both of you. Got a Lancer right next to you. I'm waiting for a Lancer to make his announcement. It's 20 minutes late out here, so I'm still waiting for Big Sam to pull the trigger over here.
Hey, Greg, I want you to know when I signed, quote unquote, to Cornell, getting the Greg Biggins tweet Orange Lutheran, Lancer, wide receiver J.D. Pickella signed to that made my year, dude. So it's full circle having you on, man.
Nice. Love that.
All right. Now you're on the hot seat. Enough of this. Let's get to it. What's going on with Chris Henry Jr.? Because we heard the announcement. Scott Schrader has video of the announcement of Ohio State, but rumblings back in the bullpen over here is that Chris Henry Jr. has not sent in his letter of intent.
Yeah, I was told it's not a big deal, which, I mean, if you're Ohio State, it's always a big deal, right? But I was told it just, hasn't had a chance to sign it yet. He already knew Coach Hartline was taking another job. That was communicated. So it wasn't like he was shocked by the fact that his, future wide receiver coach was not going to be there anymore. So, I think maybe give it time. Maybe the kid just hasn't had a chance to sign it yet. But now, go hour or 2 hours from now when he still hasn't signed, then I might worry a little bit. But, talking to people over at that ceremony, they said, hey, he's been all Ohio State this whole time. He's a very loyal kid, not just loyal to Hartline, loyal to Ohio State. He's a Midwest kid. And even though he got bigger offers to go elsewhere for 2 years, that's his dream school. That's where he wants to be. So I still think Ohio State, but obviously, if you're a Buckeye fan, you want that letter signed.
All right. Well, the big news then, maybe not Chris Henry Jr., but the big news is Kaylen Dixon Wyatt flipping that commitment from Ohio State to USC today. Huge addition for the Trojans. A loss for Ohio State. They got plenty of targets still to throw to out in Columbus, and we're not going to cry for them. But take us behind the scenes of that one. How much of it had to do with the news that we saw today of Brian Hartline's departure?
Honestly, I don't think it had a lot to do with it. Now, obviously, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
I was hearing a month ago that he was going to USC. Kind of put it on Scott Schrader's message board. Kind of heard rumblings. Ironically, USC was not one of his top 3 schools the first time around. They were one of his last offers before he committed. So they kind of slow played him a little bit. They already had a pretty strong wide receiver room. And I think they got the vibe, USC, that Caden just really wasn't interested. So they weren't really invested in him. I don't think they thought that they had a real shot. They did offer late. He got him on campus a couple of times. But, it was Ohio State. It was Oregon. It was a few other schools. And then I think watching USC over the course of the year, he's got 3 other modern-day teammates that are also going to USC. He loves the wide receiver room. You don't need to be a genius to predict that McGuire, Lemon, Jacoby Lane, they're both NFL guys. They're going into the draft early this year. They don't really have a number one. Tanook Hines, I do like a lot, but they don't really have a dominant number one coming back. And I think they were able to sell him that, hey, you want to come play right away. Ohio State has this guy named Jeremiah Smith. He's pretty good at football, right? You come here to USC, and you got a chance to be the guy from day one. And I think that kind of appealed to Caden, along with, like I said, 3 modern-day teammates, a big Southern California recruiting class. You guys talked about it earlier. USC really focused on Southern California this year. And I think it paid off getting Caden. Like I said, about a month ago, kind of started to hear rumblings. I didn't really believe it. If you're a receiver, why not go to Ohio State? 2 weeks ago, hearing it from more people. And then obviously today, went ahead and got it done. So huge for USC. They kind of stayed on him. People will say, oh, it's a money grab. I heard the money wasn't that big of an issue for him. I think it was staying close to home. It was family. It was teammates. And obviously he was playing right now. USC wide receiver room. He can go in there and compete right away.
Greg, what changed with USC recruiting over the course of this past cycle? Because we talked about it different times throughout this show. A year ago, hot start to the cycle, kind of fizzle out. It just feels like there's a different energy around USC recruiting. What do you attribute that to?
100%. Yeah, no, you guys talked about it. I think they focused on Southern California. And I'm probably the one guy, I feel like I'm the most realistic Southern California guy. Well, I will say, it pains me to say, and you're a Southern Cal guy, the best football players are in the South. Right?
Yeah.
Most people out here believe, hey, no, California, we Modern Day and Bosco go and beat everybody else, and therefore California football is the best. I'm like, dude, I go, no, look at the NFL draft. 5 years in a row, we're struggling. Georgia's past us. California is now behind Florida, Texas, and Georgia for producing NFL talent. So it kind of pains me to say it. But so when they kind of went more national, I was okay with it. Now, the hard part about that, because I think there's dudes in Georgia and dudes in Florida. But the hard part, like you mentioned earlier, it's hard to babysit guys when they're, a couple of time zones away. Southern California kids grew up wanting to play for USC. Their mom and dad grew up wanting their kid to go to USC. So it's so much easier to keep those guys committed. USC always had so many really strong out-of-state players, and then they would flip and lose them, right? So this year, I think focusing on Southern California, and to their credit, I don't think it just coincidentally, it's a strong California class in 2020. I think 27 is even stronger than 26. So I imagine you'll see them focus on Southern California again in the 2027 class, not sign 35 guys, maybe more like 20. But it's a lot of talent out here. If you can kind of keep that talent, you still have to leave for linemen. I've always said, again, people will not like me when I say it, but we don't produce a lot of elite level linemen, the D tackles, the big guys. Again, you go to the South, and we get a Mason Graham every once in a while, but in the South you see 20 of those guys, right? So you still got to leave home. Oregon has done it. Oregon has done a great job recruiting nationally, going after those linemen, those edge rushers, those big interior D tackles, and obviously the big offensive guards and the offensive tackles. We just don't have a ton of them. But the skill guys, the linebackers, the quarterbacks, that's out here. USC focused on that, and I think that's what they got done. And also Chad Bowden. Honestly, talk about energy. A different level of energy. I saw it firsthand talking to kids. They just seem to have a lot more juice to them. Players want to stay local. And like you mentioned, man, it's probably their best class, whether it's 1 or 2 or 3, it's their best class in a long time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hear the big dogs barking over there.
No respect to
Dog
the
work.
Gardener's kind of starting up, and now the dog's trying to get on me a little bit. So I don't think they realize I'm talking to a couple legends over here. I need
signing day can be unforgiving, but you are powering through. So talk about, we were talking about the modern day signing here, and it was running a little bit late. What other drama were you paying attention to besides Chris Henry Jr. and Caden Dixon Wyatt?
Yeah, I mean, again, I mentioned we got a Lancer over there. Sam Mutu, I expect probably has already committed. SMU, I got sent a photo, and he's got a table that it's an SMU table with SMU all around it. So there's no real drama around his decision. It's just I promised the kid, hey, when you put it out, I'll put it out, and he hasn't put it out yet. So his table, everything around it, the decorations, it's all SMU. So that's a pretty big flip for the Mustangs from Alabama. And Bama wanted him. This wasn't a push out. This was Bama wanted him. He kind of just felt like a little more comfort level at SMU. Haven Finney, LSU guy, Corey Raymond guy, he's not going to sign today. I thought maybe he might. There was some buzz that Corey Raymond might actually go ahead and get that job, the DB job. But I don't know if there's been an official announcement yet. But as I'm talking to you, I'm looking with my peripheral vision like a quarterback. Haven Finney's dad just said he will not sign today. They're still going to hold out a little bit. So we'll see Thursday or Friday. LSU is still the dream school, but Corey Raymond is his dream DB coach. And I'm not saying that he would follow Corey anywhere, but he would love to play for Corey. Rider Lions, how about that one? That's kind of BYU. I think even before all the Kalani Sitake rumors about him going to Penn State, will he or won't he? We heard that Rider might not sign, and honestly, it's not a huge thing if he signs or not. He's going on an LDS mission, not a 2-year mission. I think it's going to be a little shorter. And so when he comes back, though, he'll be a free agent. So if he signs, he could sign with Elbow State A&M today. It's not going to be binding anyway, right? So I think BYU would probably love, or the fans would love to be able to announce him and talk about him, right? That's the biggest thing when you sign. You can be announced and talked about. Rider Lions for me. I think he's really good, man. I think I'm the outlier. I like him a little bit more than just about everybody else. I think he's pure. I love the stroke. I love the makeup. I love the way he can move around. I love the playmaking skill. I think Rider Lions is special. But again, BYU, I still think he's going to end up there, but I don't think he's going to sign today. Maybe not sign at all this week. So we'll see. I'm kind of following that one a little bit right now.
Greg, how much does it matter if or when he signs, considering he's going to take that 1-year mission? Would his recruitment kind of in a year from now, could we be revisiting this recruitment either way? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
100%. Like the letter. I mean, these letters, they're so easy to get out of now. It's not like it's the old days where it's hard. So, but whether he was signing an old school letter of intent, those are only, I want to say it's only like a year. When those are, my boy Chad said we got a Lancer. He's committed to SMU. So there we go. Those are only good for a year anyway. So when he comes back, I think actually it's kind of good for him. I want to say it's a 14-month mission. So he'll come back. He's going to still be working out wherever he's going. I haven't heard where he's going yet, but he's going to still work out. When he comes back, he'll be ready to go. But no, I would expect probably the recruiting process will begin again, and he'll be able to see, okay, who's playing? Is Bear Bachmeier still the guy? Do I want to come and wait behind him? Who's at Oregon right now? Is it Dante Morris probably come and gone? Who's their guy? Does USC have a guy? Longstreet, what's he doing? I mean, he's going to be in a position. Did Sitake not take Penn State, but is he taking another job next year? So I think it's a good spot for him. He actually gets to take a year off and kind of survey the land, survey the scene, and then make another decision. But again, I think he chose BYU for a lot of reasons, not just football. Family, the church is big for him. So we'll see. I think it sticks, but we'll probably revisit this, a year or 12, 14 months from now.
All right. Speaking of revisiting things in 12 months, who are we going to be paying attention to at the modern day signing table next year? Because we might as well talk about it now, because that's where the drama is going to be. Not necessarily the drama, but the focus is always going to be on that table on signing day in Southern California at Modern Day High School. So who should we know now that we're going to see next year?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the biggest, and I'm not just trying to, brown nose the host, but the top recruit in Southern California is an Orange Lutheran Lancer. It's Marcus Fakatu. He's the number one guy in California right now.
Yeah.
He
Reclassified, right?
He's a Trinity League guy. But how about we show some love to those other schools? Right now, Fakatu, Notre Dame is the rumor. Oregon is right there as well. So in terms of Modern Day, I'll answer the question for you, Josh, just because I love your uncle. They got two elite DBs, Danny Lang and Aaron Washington. We call Aaron J.O. So J.O. and Danny Lang are both elite. J.O. is going to announce at the Navy All-American Bowl. Right now, I think Ohio State's the dream school for him. He had a great visit to Nebraska. USC still in the mix. I think Danny Lang, Ohio State, he loves them. They like him quite a bit. But USC is making a really strong run. The DB class in 2027 could be generational. And by that, I mean like the last 10 years, I think there's, Duvet Williams, Sarah High School. Sarah, that's Marquise Lee, Dory Jackson, Robert Woods, right? That's Sarah High School. I think USC probably looks good for Duvet Williams. Long Beach Poly's got two dudes. Dante Wright, already a Georgia commit, Oregon trying hard to flip. Juju Johnson, he was supposed to announce December 1st. Oklahoma's the team to beat there, but he's kind of decided to hold off a little bit. Jalen Hill from St. John Bosco, another elite. There's like 8 to 10 guys just from Southern California alone who I think are national top 300 recruits, all DBs in that 2027 class. So if you want to go get a DB, I think Southern California 2027, that's the year to get them. There's a lot of them.
How's USC looking for these guys? I mean, they are the hometown team. They should be the team to beat. They haven't been the team to beat in past years, but it seems like we might be back there now.
Yeah, no, like you said, you got a Trojan degree in. I mentioned. No, I think they lead for Duvet Williams. I'm actually kind of surprised that hasn't happened yet. He hasn't pulled the trigger just yet, but he's a top 100 kid easily, two-way guy. But I like him as a corner. I mentioned Danny Lang, who I like a lot. I think they might be the team to beat for him. The other guys, Dante Wright, I mentioned. I don't know if USC is heavily involved, but yeah, I mean, there's Honor. I'm going to try to not butcher this name because I'm half Hawaiian. I should be able to nail it. Honor Falabe Johnson, right? Cathedral Catholic in San Diego. Him and Marcus Fakatu, probably the top two guys. I think I mentioned Marcus, and I might actually be Honor's the number one guy. I'm not sure. They're 1 and 2. I think Honor is a USC lean. Again, Oregon was the early leader, but I think USC has a strong history, and so does Oregon of recruiting well in San Diego. But Honor is he legitimately, he kind of reminds me a little bit of Celeste Moa in that he could play running back, receiver, safety, or corner in college. And I mean at a high level. Everyone says safety. I love him as a running back. He's a legitimate 10-4, 100-meter guy. You don't see a lot of Polynesians going 10-4, but he can go. So safety, and I think right now, me and Adam and Steve all have our predictions on USC for Honor. He'll take his time. Early guy to commit right now. He wants to kind of play the process out, but talk about him. Another guy who I think USC looks good for right now, pretty early.
All right. Well, Greg Biggins out on the West Coast. We appreciate you dropping in on today's live signing day show. Speaking of signing day, let's head out to Eugene where the grass is damn green, and we have Dan Lanning with the number 3 class in America as the letters come in. Dan, how you feeling today? How you doing?
It's always like Christmas Day, man, when you get to figure out what guys are going to be joining your program. Certainly an exciting day for us.
All right. So I'm going to start it off here. What makes a recruit an Oregon recruit? What makes a recruit somebody you want to go after?
Well, obviously you have to check all the boxes that matter on the field, right? And I think those are the easy ones to check. You can turn on anybody's film and recognize, okay, this guy's got ability and talent. Sometimes you have to evaluate, okay, what level of competition is it? How much room for growth, right? Growth potential for that player. But I think for us, ultimately, it comes down to the person. We need guys that have a growth mindset, that are trying to figure out how they can become the best version of themselves. Those are things that we really try to attack and evaluate in recruiting. I think that's just as important as them checking the box of what kind of player they can be.
Coach, what were the positions of emphasis for Oregon in this 2026 recruiting cycle? And if they've sent in their letters of intent, kind of speak on some of the guys that helped fill those needs.
Yeah. All right. You put me on the spot there, Steve. But ultimately, look, I think in recruiting, you have to be resetting every position, like really every single year you're looking to fill. That gives you the opportunity to build it the way you want to from the, we've been a team when I first got here that had to rely on the portal just because of the transition of a new head coach. And that number's really gone down for us every single year. So now you're trying to find guys again, from the ground up that you can be able to build. And there isn't one position that isn't important. I think there's certainly been a huge emphasis for us in the trenches since I've gotten here. But now you're seeing some of the dynamic skill that's been able to contribute for us early. This year, I think we have more freshman touchdowns on the field than any other team in the nation for guys that are able to contribute early. So that, that's what you're looking for. And everybody's path a little bit different. Some guys are going to be able to make an impact right away. Some guys, their plan and process is different. But ultimately meeting guys where they're at and seeing where you can get them. We got a lot of them, man, but you want to ask a name about it and I can tell you if I can actually talk about them yet or not. That's the part that's always hairy.
Well, it looks like Big Manny's LOI's in.
That's a good one. I got to see that dude play in action. Unbelievable player, unbelievable human. Obviously love, Manny and his family. We fell in love with this guy early, and he's a great example of what we just talked about. Went to a great school there, Georgetown Prep, has done an unbelievable job of growing as a player over time. He's got some of those rare traits that you talk about, that you just God-given traits that are really special, and then athleticism to boot on top of that. He's great strength, great size. Got to see the guy compete in person, and he was dominant when we did that, and really built a great relationship with him over time. And Coach Terry obviously did an unbelievable job there as well.
Coach Lanning, happy signing day. I want to ask you about just your class right now and everything shaking and moving with your coordinators. Obviously, y'all being such a relational program, what are those conversations like right now with the guys that you have in the boat relative to what the future holds with you and your staff?
Yeah, that really starts before it even gets here. I tell all these, I have my goals written on my mirror, and the number one goal in my mirror is to help my people reach their dreams and goals. Like, I get to live my dream every day being here at Oregon. And part of that honesty with them is, look, the one thing I can promise you is I'll be here as long as I win. What I can't promise you is that all these coaches will be here when you win, because guess what? I want them to reach their dreams and goals as well. And I think when you're open and honest with that in the front end, and you tell them, look, I want to get you to the NFL, right? But I want these coaches to have the same opportunity that I have and get to do. And it creates a great opportunity for growth within your staff. It creates an opportunity for new ideas. And it creates an opportunity for new relationships. So I think if you're honest from the beginning, like, hey, this is my goal, man. I hope Will Stein gets to go become a head coach. I want to help him get there. And we've been through this transition before. I think we proved how it worked, right? Worked out pretty well going from Kenny Dillingham to Will. And guess what? The next coordinators that we hire here, they're probably going to become head coaches too. And that for me is fulfilling as anything, because when I tell you, hey, you want to reach your dreams and goals, right? Well, look, your coaches are doing it. The players are doing it. We've had more players drafted last year than any other year in the history of Oregon football. Like, that's what this place is about. And these guys are signing up for Oregon. They're not signing up just for me. They're not signing up just for the coaches. They're signing up for this place and what they believe in and the direction we're headed. But as long as you're open and honest, you don't tell a guy, hey, this guy's going to be here for the next 5 years with me. Like, that's never my conversation. My conversation is, I'm going to help these coaches, the staff members, these players reach their dreams and goals. And if you want to reach your dreams and goals, this is a place you can do it.
Coach, as an assistant and as a head coach, you've been part of some amazing signing day wins at the last minute. Can you take us behind the scenes? What's it like with some of these blue chippers committed elsewhere? Maybe it's your own guys or guys that you're working to flip, the kind of conversations that you're having, and what are things that move the needle for these last second flips that we see year in and year out that you've been a part of as an assistant and a head coach?
Yeah, I think, this game, as we all recognize right now, is really fluid. To think that the season's still going on, right? And right now you've got signing day going on. You've got coaching changes going on. There's a lot of chaos that happens in the moment. So for me, it's more about being a listening ear and saying, hey, look, I appreciate wherever you're at, and I'll be a fan for you wherever you're at. But if you're here, here's what you can expect. And the proof's in the pudding in that result, what we've been able to create. And being a guy that's there, open for communication along with the rest of our staff, and building some of those lifelong relationships. A lot of times they really pay dividends down the stretch.
You have to put out some fires too, right? With some of your own your own guys that have been committed over the years that come back last minute with things that they're hearing from other programs?
Say that one more time, Steve.
You have to put out some fires with your own guys that have been committed for a long time too, right? That are getting last minute pitches from other programs.
Yeah. It's part of the game. And it's part of the entire process. And you know what? I don't envy the decisions some of these players have to make. It's really tough, especially down the stretch and with opportunities that are given. But like I said, I think the biggest thing you can do is be open and honest. And when you're open and honest, and then you're able to point to results. Hey, this is what this guy was able to do when he came here. I think that takes care of a lot of that. And the only thing that you can point at are that, results, what your team's been able to do. This has been a team that's improved every single year that we've been here. And guys that have had a lot of success since they've been here. We don't spend a lot of time talking about other programs. I always feel like coaching staffs that spend their time talking about other programs are coaching staff that don't have enough good things to say about their own. And we got a lot to brag about here at Oregon. We got a lot of special things going on here that we want to emphasize.
Coach, speaking on the demands of college football, especially recruiting, the hustle, every day is about recruiting, and it's driven some college coaches to the NFL. And I'm sure you've had some opportunities as well, but why have you stuck to college and why do you like it so much?
Well, it definitely is. It's definitely different, right? When you're trying to hang out with your family at dinner and you get a phone call and you're like, hey, I got to take this.
It's nonstop.
It's a lifestyle. And one thing that I'm grateful for is my family signed up for it, right? They understand, look, your dad doesn't just want to be involved as a coach. He wants to be a part of something that can be great. And to be great, it takes sacrifice. So that's one of those sacrifices that we all sign up for. There's days, just like every job, you guys probably got some things you don't love about what you deal with there. But what I do love is when you do get on the field, when you do get to have these guys over to your house, when you do get that opportunity to have a relationship, you do get the chance just to have a conversation about family. Those are the things that are the separators for me. And this is the perfect age group for me to be able to influence and just be a sounding board for, and hopefully, give a great representation of what it means to be a great father and a great husband and a guy that works hard. And when all those things really pay off, if those guys follow those same models, they're going to be really successful in life. So it's taxing, it's different, but there's sacrifice required to be a part of something that can be great. And that's a sacrifice I certainly don't mind, having.
No, and the sacrifice is paid off this cycle. You guys have signed 5 stars, number 3 ranked class in America, according to the Rivals Industry. And signing day is not done yet. So we'll let you get back to work, but we appreciate you taking your time out of this busy day to join us here on the Rivals Recruits channel.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Have a great one.
All right. Talk to you soon. And go Ducks. There you go, JD. Dan Lanning, first appearance here on the Rivals Recruits channel. And he's hauling in the number 3 class in America.
Dude, he just always has the right answer. You know what I'm saying? Every single question we gave him, it's just like not just a good answer, it's a bar. It's like your dad doesn't want to just be involved. Yeah. He wants to be great. I'm like, I'm ready to play right now for Dan Lanning.
Yeah, Steve.
When Oregon is recruiting a kid, obviously they're a program that has the resources in modern recruiting to compete. But they leave no stone unturned when they are recruiting a top target. Dan Lanning going out to see Manny Iannaccio, connecting with every recruit that they're recruiting. They have a relationship with the head coach at the University of Oregon. The amount of emphasis that they put on recruiting as a staff, from meeting on it behind the scenes, evaluating film, multiple coaches getting to know a top target. That is why Oregon is consistently producing top recruiting classes, but then why it's translating to the field. This is a football team that's only lost 1 game over the last 2 seasons. 2 games over the last 2 football seasons. And it's because of the culture. These kids want to play for Dan Lanning. They know him. They go hard for him. And then schematically, they put him in the right position to make plays. They've been formidable in the transfer portal. He understands where the roster deficiencies are. They always make sure that they have one of the top players in the country at the quarterback position, and it goes from there. But Dan Lanning, the way he connects with his players, he gets extra out of them because he is a player's coach.
But Steve, to your point, one of those 2 losses was a playoff game. So, I mean, in terms of what you just said about him losing 1 game in the regular season, you're absolutely on the money. I mean, there's a legitimate track record for success in Eugene currently.
We got news right here. According to Marcus Benjamin's video down at Miami Northwestern High School, Calvin Russell, 5-star wide receiver committed to the University of Syracuse, announces he will not sign today. Steve, what does that mean for Calvin Russell? What is this? What is this?
Well, he's been so adamant about his recruitment and Syracuse. Michigan was the program that nearly landed him. When he committed to Syracuse in the summer, I had a press release with quotes from Calvin Russell, his mother, an agent on him committing to the University of Michigan. Michigan's obviously going through it right now with Zion. Zion's talking to programs like Stanford out of the Lone Star State. Calvin Russell has been to Michigan, has a relationship, and I'm going to be following up with Calvin Russell's people as soon as I get done here. But Michigan was a finalist. Miami was never a program that was really on the gas for Calvin Russell. When you start talking about the financial opportunities and things that other programs were putting on the table, does Miami circle back here? What's slowing this process down? Calvin Russell went rogue and committed to Syracuse in the summer. So I don't know if there's been more dialogue with his family and his camp about looking into other options. But he loved Fran Brown and believed in the Orange in the summer. Certainly the season played out. He went to a ton of Miami games. Malachi Toney is one of his best friends, true freshman all-star.
I mean, what did he wear to every Miami game?
The Malachi Toney t-shirt. So look, but he was on the verge of committing to Michigan, went rogue, popped for Syracuse. Hayes Fawcett might have been the only other person to know that he was going to Syracuse. They sent me a new press release 25 minutes later, a lot of the same verbiage. Just changes of words and some quotes, but the expectation was Michigan in the summer, and I'm about to send some texts and see what else I can find out.
That would be huge.
Here's the thing, though. I'm not counting out Miami because Miami's due. Like, after the Jackson Cantwell commitment, yes, they added a lot of pieces to their class, but not the huge splash. And I just feel like with Derek Cooper off the table, Anthony Tank Jones traction kind of fizzling out, I just wouldn't count Miami out. Maybe he ends up signing with Syracuse and this is all one of those delays, for who knows what, but I would just watch out for Miami. So let's get back to what Dan Lanning said. And I loved you're right. He had an answer for everything. And I love that. And if you're Dan Lanning, who are you looking at in terms of coordinators? Because he seems to be able to number one, he has a very nice Rolodex of friends that he can choose from.
Sure.
And number two, anybody that comes there has had success and left for better jobs. So that's a great place for an up and coming play caller to go.
And I think the big thing I'm watching there, Josh, is not so much name, but style. I think the style is going to stay pretty similar. Even between Dillingham to Will Stein, it was just what we said. Spread, up-tempo, attack the perimeter. Also have a good run game baked in there with the zone schemes. I think the overall personality of Oregon will stay the same. And what you just said, too, in terms of the raw ingredients you're working with, if you're a coordinator walking into Oregon, I can work with DeCorian more on the perimeter. I can work with Dante Moore as my quarterback. So I think it'll be a lot more too of, hey, who's calling me if I'm Dan Lanning to go make this next hire.
Do you go to the NFL?
I wouldn't personally, just because their style has been so specific to them and seems to be so specific to college football. I'll say this too: if Dan Lanning goes to the NFL for this coordinator hire, I trust him. I made this mistake talking about Ryan Day and the DC hire with Matt Patricia. They hire him from the NFL. I'm like, I don't get this. This feels weird. He hasn't coached college. And Ohio State's got the best defense in college football right now. So whoever Dan Lanning hires, whether it's fair or not, I'm trusting that move.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Steve, I want to talk a little bit about Texas A&M. We haven't really hit on the Aggies, and they've been one of the hottest teams that we've covered throughout this cycle. It looks like they're going to ink Brandon Arrington, KJ Edwards, Bryce Perry Wright out of the state of Georgia. A very good class with, we were talking about maybe a Boobie Feaster, a KJ Ford today. First of all, do you think that A&M is able to add anybody today, or is the hay in the barn?
I think the hay is in the barn. Top 10 class, sitting at number 9 nationally right now per the Rivals industry rankings. Brandon Arrington, the class jewel, 5-star corner from California, has already sent in his letter of intent.
There it is.
Holding off LSU for 4-star running back KJ Edwards, the number 3 running back in the land, was another big pickup for the Aggies. Bryce Perry Wright, Aaron Gregory showed their prowess in the Peach State. Aaron Gregory was one of Texas A&M's most coveted wide receivers. At one of the positions that they marked as a big need in this process, Aaron Gregory, 6'3", 185 pounds, can really stretch the field out of Douglasville, Georgia. Bryce Perry Wright, a game wrecker out of powerhouse Buford High, One of their biggest wins was Victor Singleton, a cornerback, flipping him from Illinois. He's from Toledo, Ohio. The Buckeyes, Michigan, all those powerhouses were in the mix. And one of their biggest recruiting wins of the cycle came at the end. Jaden Warren out of Iowa Colony, flips from Houston, had a fantastic senior season, someone that they loved on tape. Hila Kasuga was the quarterback that they invested in, targeted early out of Corner Canyon, powerhouse in Utah. This is in modern recruiting, figure out the quarterback you want and build that relationship and invest. And this was the guy that they targeted. He had a fantastic Elite 11 finals, was one of our top performers, Charles Power, Cody Belair. And when he's on the field, he is very productive, a guy that can really be accurate with the football, smart, makes quick decisions, and he's got all the traits to really flourish for this Texas A&M football team on the next level.
Yeah, JD, Mike Elko inherited a very good roster that he made even better. I mean, the job he's done at Texas A&M is it's impressive, but he's also kind of built a new culture there as well. What is it about Mike Elko?
Whenever Mike Elko got hired, the thing that we said on this show was he is exactly what they need in the sense that he brings everything that they don't have right now.
Right.
Because with Jimbo Fisher, no knock on Jimbo Fisher, but you're kind of looking at it and like, hey, what's your identity? You got a good roster, but there's not the wins and losses to go with it. You don't have a better record than maybe what you're
right. They're not playing like the star ranking that you brought in all the time. Yeah.
Development. And so I think with Mike Elko, I just feel like there is a much higher floor with what they are right now culturally. And the thing too that should excite A&M fans on the recruiting trail, now you have proof of concept. Before you were trying to pitch this idea of, hey, we got this NIL, we got this logo, here's what we can be. You're no longer vision casting through A&M. You're in the college football freaking playoff and should have been playing in the SEC championship if you go beat Texas. So to speak to your question though, Elko, it's the culture, it's the toughness, it's the grit, and it's identity.
Yeah. Steve, we're going to have Mike Elko. He's not going to make this show because of the scheduling, but we're going to do a one-off interview with Mike Elko after signing day is over later this afternoon, and that'll be on this channel. That's why you guys need to be subscribed. You've known Mike Elko for some time now. What has he brought to Texas A&M that's kind of made it all come together and click?
Well, obviously, he's passionate about his process and believes in the culture that he's instilling in his football program. And he's super smart, an Ivy League graduated guy that is very organized with the infrastructure and has his hands on every part of that football program, from evaluations to NIL to all the position rooms and the schemes and the play calls. And so he has set the tone in that building, and people have followed. And he took Duke to heights that we don't normally see in Durham, North Carolina, and quickly as Texas A&M competing for a national championship. And I think they're obviously still building. You look at the way they're recruiting another top 10 class. They're a good bet for a top 5 class next year. They have the resources and infrastructure to put them in position to recruit the best players in America. And they build great relationships with the top targets. He's got people on his staff that are solely there as connectors to keep Texas A&M fresh in the mind of these top recruits. He knows how important that is to keep these top targets connected with the program. So he has guys in place to do that in College Station. But more than anything, he understands what's going on across the board in this program and make sure that they put these players in position to be as successful as possible on Saturdays.
Yeah. And, you kind of hit on it. And as did JD, the proof of concept is there. And you and I both understand recruiting. It kind of lags the season. Like if a team is having a great run right now, yeah, they might pick up a couple commitments because of it. But really, next year's class is going to be impacted by that. So how is Texas A&M doing on next year's class? Could it be a number 1 class?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. That starts with Jalen Brewster, number 1 cornerback in the country, number 1 player in the Rivals industry rankings. He is someone that Texas A&M is in great shape for, currently sitting at number 4 in the standings in-state recruiting is going very well for the Longhorns right now. They have a shot at John Meredith. Kennedy Brown's a 5-star offensive tackle. They're one of the front runners for the number 1 linebacker in America, Cooper Witten. They're certainly on the short list for Ishmael Kamara, who's the number 2 interior offensive lineman in the land. And Landon Williams-Callis, one of the most explosive running backs in the country, top 5 player at his position. I've already predicted to land in College Station as well. It's a very strong year in the state of Texas next year, and Texas A&M is in very strong position for many of the ballyhooed players in the state.
All right. Before we take a look at these rankings, just got word from Pete Nakos that Legend Bay is not going to sign today, Steve. What does that mean to you?
Well, I still think Legend Bay wants to go to Ohio State. I think he's still having discussions with people in his camp about his potential future and where he's going to play college football. And with that, West Virginia, Tennessee are programs that look to still be relevant here. Some of our colleagues have also mentioned SMU. I believe Pete Nakos mentioned that. So there's moving parts. I mean, it's obvious there's a chance this doesn't get done for Ohio State. But I think based on the conversation that I had when Pete Nakos was talking NIL on this show a little bit ago, the indication was that Legend wanted to go to Ohio State, and he's still having discussions with his camp about that.
Okay, signing day drama. That is what we're here for. Let's show the top teams in the country when it comes to these recruiting rankings. And there you see it. Trojans still on top. Notre Dame in at the 2 spot. What a run for Notre Dame this cycle. Oregon at 3, Georgia at 4, Alabama at 5, Ohio State, Texas, Miami, Texas A&M, and LSU round out your top 10. LSU moves up a spot. Let's zero in on this number 5 class in America. We have not talked Alabama yet. Steve, it hasn't been the most exciting day for Alabama fans. Actually, they've lost a couple commitments today.
Yeah, a lot of hay in the barn for Alabama in this recruiting cycle, a class that's highlighted by the strong work that they did at running back with Xavier Crowell, on the edge with Xavier Griffin, and in the secondary with guys like Jaira Edwards and Jordan Edmonds. They're still hoping to add another offensive tackle, 4-star Bryson Cooley, a Rivals 300 recruit that's been committed to LSU but has kept several programs warm. He was close to flipping to Mississippi State during the season, then looked like he was maybe going to stick with LSU, but it's Alabama coming on strong down the stretch. We'll see if he announces a commitment on Wednesday here today, or if his process continues through the early signing period. Talking to Tim Watts at Bama Online, sounds like Bryson Cooley is still trying to figure things out down the stretch. I predicted him to the Tide yesterday, but these programs are still coming hard for one of the most coveted offensive linemen in SEC country.
Yeah. All right. Now, Xavier Crowell was one of those prospects that reclassified. Yet he's still sitting at the top of Alabama's commit list as the highest ranked recruit. So he reclassified from a younger grade, from 2027 class, which is next year's, up to 2026. And despite that, he's still the top ranked recruit for Alabama.
Well, when he averaged 12.6 yards per carry, score 30 touchdowns, 86 career scores over 3 years at 210 pounds, and you can catch the football. He is a special talent that has the traits to be instant impact for Alabama. At RBU, some of the best names in the NFL, the likes of Derrick Henry, to come out of Alabama. And this is a young man that has the talent to maintain the standard, to be that workhorse, to keep Alabama in the championship hunt for years to come.
All right. We're going to continue to talk Alabama. JD, what do you think of the job that Kaylen DeBoer, has he finally settled in? I mean, it seems like he's found a home. He's found an identity. This team improved as the year went on. I mean, when you lose to FSU in your opening game, you can only go up from there, but they really did. They put it together. They're in the playoffs.
I would say so. We'll see what happens. I mean, the committee kind of left the door cracked open. I'd be shocked if they're not in the college football playoff.
But personally, what was it when you were like, oh, okay, Kaylen DeBoer's home?
I think once they rattled off that win streak of 4 ranked wins against 4 SEC teams, that to me was like, okay, this team is finding their identity. Kaylen DeBoer has got this locker room. Kaylen DeBoer has got his culture in place, and it might still be ascending, but I think they've got their sea legs, was my biggest take here. And last year was such a tricky spot with the Saban retirement. He gets there. The portal kind of ravages their roster, and then they can't really take anything from the portal because the portal is at that point pretty much barren. And so I think this year you're seeing a lot more of who Kaylen DeBoer wants to be, especially on the offensive side of the football. They bring in Ryan Grubb, the OC he had at Washington during that national title appearance, and they bring him in from the NFL ranks. Ty Simpson, a lot more in the mold of the kind of quarterback that Kaylen DeBoer has had success with, a guy who can push the football downfield, a guy who's accurate. It just feels like Bama's moved in. We said it last year. They were kind of eating off of cardboard boxes and stuff still packed away. Now they're finally moved in.
I get that
Bama's
feeling.
here.
Yeah, I get that vibe. So what do you think the roster needs? Not necessarily what recruit does Alabama need, but what does this roster need for it to really take the next step under Kaylen DeBoer?
I think Lanning Crowell at the running back position was huge for them, because I think you look at Bama historically, they've been the bully on the block when they're able to just turn around and hand the ball to Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram, TJ. Like when there's like the bully Bama, that's when they're really rolling. And I think when they get that all the way implemented into the offense, then you got play action opened up. Then you got explosives rolling. And so I think that's the big thing for Bama, is getting to be a little bit more edgy on the offense side of the football.
All right. Virginia Tech, we're going to talk with James Franklin. So I'm pop in, pop out. So we'll probably get James Franklin here soon. But Steve, have you ever seen a team move up? It's almost there. Virginia Tech has cracked the top 30 now. They're in there at 29. Have you ever seen a team move up 100 spots in a month?
No,
Because that's Virginia Tech's on the verge of doing that.
it's been fascinating. I wanted them to get to 18 just so we could say they moved up 100 spots on the dot. Terry Wiggins, 4-star linebacker, top 10 player at his position, committed to Penn State. He's another target out there for Virginia Tech. And James Franklin, I like the Hokies to add Terry Wiggins to the fold. He's announcing around 12:30 local time. So about 29 minutes, we'll know if Terry Wiggins is sticking with Penn State or flipping to Virginia Tech. But I like the Hokies there. And James Franklin, he's always been an involved recruiter. And you can see the connection and relationship that he had with so many of these guys. It was 13 commits coming into the day that he landed since going to Virginia Tech. And a lot of those guys had a connection with James Franklin. And another that they flipped from Kentucky, Garrett Witherington, he had a connection with James Franklin. He didn't pick Penn State the first time, but he's picking Virginia Tech the second time. And it's because they believe in him and his track record of player development and consistent programs, but also they know him. They trust him and want to play for him because they have a relationship with James Franklin and know what he's about.
This brings me to an interesting recruiting discussion, because Steve, you've been to a lot of these camps. You've been around where they'll get all the recruits in a circle on one knee, and the whoever the speaker is, usually a former player of some sort or a coach, is telling them that it's all about picking a program over picking a coach. That's what they tell these recruits. You got to pick a program, not a coach, because the coaches never stick around, and you're loyal to a program. You're not loyal to a throw that all out the window, because what we're seeing right now with Penn State and James Franklin, I mean, a lot of these recruits never probably thought of Virginia Tech when they committed to Penn State. But now that James Franklin is there, it opens the door wide for all these guys. And just not necessarily speaking about this, what do you think recruits are really picking? Are they picking people? Or are they picking programs?
Well, oftentimes when people say that, I think they're referring to position coaches and coordinators, because those are guys that tend to be on the move. But if you have a head coach, James Franklin was at Penn State for 12 years. Kirby Smart's already logged a lot of time at Georgia. Dan Lanning says he's not going anywhere. Oregon, Ryan Day. Those guys lose coordinators, lose coaches, but they are the tone setters in their building, holding their program accountable, making sure that both sides of the ball are functioning at a high level. And the programs that have consistent track records are winning are ones where the head coach has his finger on the pulse of everything going on, from play calling and scheme to recruiting and roster infrastructure. And so James Franklin had that going at Penn State. That's why they were so consistent, but he was involved on the recruiting trail. And that's why you're seeing all these recruits that were at one point committed to Penn State following James Franklin to Virginia Tech, because again, they feel connected to him. Wouldn't be surprised if we see some coaches also follow, because of the chemistry and harmony that they have working together. They're finishing out the string at Penn State. I mean, Penn State's bowl eligible. Terry Smith did a good job of keeping the ship afloat at Penn State, and them winning a couple of those ball games at the end, nearly knocked off Indiana at home in the process. But committing to the head coach is fine. I think when people say that, Josh, to answer your question, it's more committing to the running backs coach or committing to the coordinator. And sometimes those guys aren't even good coaches. They're just good at recruiting, you know?
But on the flip side too, though, I was told by a former NFL player, he said he was telling his son, who was a top recruit, what to pay attention to on these visits. And he said, the most important people you got to know about are your position coach and your strength coach, because those are the two people that you're going to be with every single day when you're with that program. So it is tough. I mean, I don't know what the right answer is. I don't always agree with that. I do think, like, JD, you went through the recruiting process, not at the level of a Chris Henry Jr. No disrespect.
Sure, I was under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, no
disrespect. I was ahead of my time.
But like, you're a teenager. You got these grown men sitting in your living room back when in-home visits were a thing. That's not even happening anymore. But you got these grown men sitting in your living room. It is about the relationship, right?
I really think, what I've always said about recruiting, and this has maybe changed a little bit with NIL, I think people commit to people. And what I think that former NFL player said is absolutely on the money. Like, you do commit in some ways to the head coach and, you know, the direction of a program and stuff like that. But more often than not, like, you're not having daily conversations with a James Franklin or a Dan Lanning or a Ryan. Right. I'm sure you see them on a fairly often basis. They're speaking to you, but like, your interactions, your group chat is with your position coach, your position room, and obviously your strength coach you see every single day, usually more often than not bright and early when everyone's still getting their bearings. Yeah. So it's important to have those relationships dialed in and feel good about where those are at.
Yeah, it is. And speaking of relationships, we got one of the best relationship builders in the country. Let's bring in head coach James Franklin, Virginia Tech Hokies. Coach, first of all, welcome to the show. Happy signing day. How are you feeling? How's it been in your new home in Blacksburg?
I'm exhausted. I could use some sleep right now, to be honest with you. It's been a crazy 2 weeks. What typically takes 2 years to build a recruiting class, we've done it in 2 weeks. I'm really blessed and fortunate. I had 8 people come with me. They didn't know what they were going to get paid. They didn't know what their job titles were. I said, look, I need you to come with me and help me. We all jumped in a car and took off. We had 17 prospects in last week on an official visit. I'm the only coach. They're saying, who's the defense coordinator? Who's the offense coordinator? Who's the receivers coach? Who's the O-line coach? And I just kept saying, trust me, trust me, trust me. And we were able to put a class together that we're very proud of in a short period of time.
Yeah, we were just talking. I was sitting here with Steve, and I said, have you ever seen a class move 100 spots in a month? And Coach, you guys are like 11 spots away from moving up 100 spots. But I want to ask you about that recruiting weekend. Your first weekend in Blacksburg, it was a home game. You had recruits there. You weren't coaching. You were on the sideline. You were in the stands. You were in the booth. Have you ever had an experience like that before?
No, I didn't know what to do. 2 weeks earlier, I was at the Old Dominion Troy game because both of those head coaches coached for me. I'm in the parking lot with Coach Ronnie's wife tailgating, eating a hot dog. I've never done that before in my life. Not I've eaten a hot dog before, but I'm talking about tailgating. And then the next week, obviously at the Miami game with Virginia Tech, I'm not in the locker room. I'm not coaching. I'm not preparing the guys. I'm on the sideline. They're running on the field. I'm shaking hands. I'm kissing babies. I go up to the president's suite. I'm meeting donors. I'm talking to politicians. No one's watching the game. I'm like, can we watch the game? They had me do TV. They had me do radio. I must admit, I didn't enjoy it a whole lot, but it's a different perspective, and I'm glad to be back in it.
Coach, so many of these young men that are locking in their futures with Virginia Tech were guys that had originally locked in their future with you at another place. What is it about your message that you think is so attractive to these young men? And talk about your involvement in their process as you go from offering them to getting them to commit to you.
Well, again, most of these guys and their families I've known for at least 2 years, and they're real relationships, right? Significant relationships where they've gotten to know me, I've gotten to know them, and there's trust. At the end of the day, that's what this is all about, right? It's trust. The parents feeling comfortable handing their kids over to you and the staff. and it's the players feeling like they can achieve all of their dreams. So you take, my history, whether it's at Vanderbilt and Penn State, and you're combining that with the enthusiasm and the passion and the history and the brand of Virginia Tech. And we were able to get it done. I heard the guys talking right before I came on, and they were talking about this is still a relationship business, and it is, except when the gap is too wide from a financial standpoint, because I've had some guys that, have tremendous relationships with, and I think would have chose my program back when we were 85 scholarships, but that situation has changed, and you got to be in a situation where you can at least be competitive financially.
Coach, on the official visit to Virginia Tech, a few of these guys, when I was interviewing them about the experience, mentioned getting in the gear, walking down the tunnel, and then all of a sudden Enter Sandman starts playing during their recruiting visit. Was that the flipping the switch on the radio? Is that one of the jobs of one of the 7 guys that came with you? And just what's that atmosphere like in Virginia Tech that makes these guys feel so comfortable beyond your relationship with them?
Yeah, it's a special deal. I've been here twice as the offensive coordinator at the University of Maryland when a guy named Bud Foster was the defense coordinator on the other sideline, and it was a long night for the young ball coach calling the plays at the University of Maryland, and the place was rocking and going crazy. The song is phenomenal. This place goes crazy. I will tell you this. Since being here and actually listening to the words of it, before I just kind of got up in the excitement and the hype of it, the words are really cool in that song too. So it's a special place, and it's our job to make sure that the most exciting thing isn't just the entrance, Enter Sandman, with the fans and the players going crazy. We want to give our fans and our alumni something to be excited about for all 4 quarters.
Coach Franklin, happy signing day. 2-parter for you. One, you mentioned you're exhausted. What's the primary source of caffeine? We go in energy drink, we go in coffee, we go in iced coffee. And then second, you just seem fired up about this opportunity at Virginia Tech. What is it about Blacksburg and that program that made it the right job for you and has you juiced up going on however many hours of sleep you're going on?
Well, the first thing is I give them a ton of credit, right? I talked to a bunch of schools, and a lot of the schools I would say didn't really have a detailed plan when it comes to budget for staff, when it comes to budget for coaches, when it comes to NIL. And what I think was helpful, and I think you guys saw it because it kind of made the news probably about a month earlier, Virginia Tech already had a well plan. They had done their research. They had done benchmarking in the ACC. They had done benchmarking nationally. So they already had a plan. So when we had a discussion and there seemed to be interest there, and they asked what I thought was needed, the things I was asking for wasn't far off from what they already had planned on doing. And I think that allowed things to move fast. And then, to be honest with you, they were super aggressive. They were super aggressive right from the beginning, almost too much, to be honest with you. I was still processing a lot, and me and my wife spending a lot of time kind of working through what had just happened. But they were very aggressive. When it comes to caffeine, I only drink coffee and things like that when I'm at work. But I've been hammering it, to be honest with you. Fighting a little bit of a cold as well, so I need to get some sleep. But it is coffee and water. I ate for the first time last night at 9:00. It was Chipotle. It was unbelievable. But things have been great. Things have been great here. There's so much enthusiasm and excitement right now, and we're going to use that, to obviously propel this program where everybody wants it to be.
That's awesome.
This office, trust me, it runs on Chipotle. We got the Chipotle boys in the back over there every single day. That is what fuels us. Wanted to ask you, I know today's signing day and the portal's going to open here soon. When you arrived at Virginia Tech, how did you decide how many recruits can we take versus what we need to do in the portal? Was there did you guys really dig into this roster, and was it just you alone?
No, I got a group of guys. Andy Frank is a guy who's been working with me either as a recruiting coordinator or a GM, He's got an engineering degree from Princeton. He's been with me for all 15 years. When I got the Vanderbilt job, he was already there. Kevin Threlkill has been with me for 19 years since he was a student at Kansas State. I brought him to Maryland. We've been together the whole time. So I got a core group of guys who've been with me a long time. And, that's the hard part, right? You're looking at the roster and you're trying to project what attrition would be. Typically, during our time at Penn State, we would study natural attrition that happened in the program to be able to predict how many guys we were going to be able to take in each class. That's harder to do in this situation. So we're just being aggressive, especially with the high school recruits. We don't want to become a program that if in year one you just totally go transfer portal, and I get it. Everybody's looking at the Indiana model. But there's so many more programs that have gone that model and it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So I don't think you ever want to make decisions based on the exception. And we don't want to make decisions in year one that are going to force us in year two and moving forward to live in the transfer portal. So for us, it's a balance between high school recruits and then doing what we have to do in the transfer portal. We'll be aggressive this first year, and then we'll start to go to more of a high school model with complementary pieces from the transfer portal.
Well, the good thing, Coach, is you were in a unique position where you transitioned to Virginia Tech and already had a foothold in the region recruiting some of these top targets, and you're taking a bigger high school class this cycle. When you're talking to recruits and their families, what are your favorite things to emphasize to them consistently about why playing in your Coach Franklin-led program is the right maneuver for them?
Well, again, I didn't really have to do a whole lot of selling because most of the guys that we're recruiting here at Virginia Tech are guys I've been recruiting for multiple years. Some of them were already committed to Virginia Tech, so we're excited about what Virginia Tech had to offer from a history, tradition, and most importantly, academic perspective. And then I come in with my resume. It made sense, and I think people were comfortable with it. And then the young men that were committed to other places and other schools, they were excited about coming with me. And to be honest, that was part of the reason why I took the job as well. This thing was dragging on. And if I would have waited, I may not have been able to get a bunch of these young men that were committed to our vision, committed to our plan, and wanted to be with us. And Virginia Tech was ready to move. And every day I kept seeing our commitments commit to other places across the country. And I wanted to provide an opportunity for them as well. I don't think that's what people understand. When these decisions are made, it affects hundreds of people, coaches and their families, staff and their families, the current players and their parents, the recruits and their parents. Like we had the number one recruiting class in the country for next year's class.
Yeah.
So this affects hundreds of people. And by me taking a job early, I could help as many of those people as I possibly could, which is what it's about for me.
And I know some of these kids, guys like quarterback Troy Hune, who's already locked in and signed his papers today, they were waiting to see where you landed. Were they trying to stay in touch with you regularly as you went through your process? How much communication did you have with guys that were going to potentially play for you in college before you knew exactly where you would settle in your next post?
Yeah, not a whole lot. To be honest with you, when everything first went down, I needed to take a little bit of time, right, and take a deep breath. It was kind of shocking and caught me and my family off guard. So kind of working through that. And then obviously people started reaching out, recruits that obviously had not signed yet and were interested in going where I was going to go. And then, I went on ESPN, and that kind of got some things going as well. And people were excited and wanted to come with us. So all these things factored into it, but ultimately I wanted to make sure that they were in the best position to take care of themselves and their families and their futures. So I didn't know if it would time up, but it ended up working out.
Well, Coach, this signing day is working out pretty well for you guys. Like I said, almost moved up 100 spots. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you got a couple flips left in the bag. We'll just have to wait and see. But regardless, we are having a great time covering Virginia Tech. We've never talked so much Virginia Tech as we have in the last month. Steve Wiltfong's never wrote as many stories about Virginia Tech as we had in the last month. And I have some Virginia Tech family that are alumni, and they are absolutely fired up. So we can't wait to watch you. Good luck the rest of the day, and thank you for joining us on the Rivals Recruits channel.
Well, when you said that, I looked up in the corner to see the clock because I think there's another one coming here pretty soon. So get everybody ready, sharpen the pencils, get the keyboards going. There's another one coming soon.
All right. Make sure Steve stretches out the fingers a little bit, but we'll be reporting on it. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you so much.
All right. Talk to you soon, Coach. There it is. James Franklin. So he left us with a little bit of a cliffhanger. Who is going to be the next flip for Virginia Tech? Let's throw it over to Steve Wiltfong.
Terry Wiggins, number 9 linebacker in the Rivals industry rankings, took his official visit to Virginia Tech over the weekend, and he is trending heavy to the Hokies at the end of his process. 6'4", 205 pounds, tremendous length, pass rush ability from the edges in the second level would be another major addition to a Virginia Tech class that ranked 118 3 weeks ago, pushing towards the top 25 here on National Signing Day.
Yeah, just an unbelievable run by Virginia Tech. It was cool talking to James Franklin too about his understanding of how the coaching carousel correlates with the recruiting calendar and how important it was for Virginia Tech to have a plan. You know, I don't think he was taking any veiled shots at Penn State, but that's clearly a program that did not have a plan when they released them. And you see how Virginia Tech has been able to capitalize on the recruiting trail. Really heads up play there by James Franklin.
Yeah, and heads up play by Virginia Tech to have a plan in place. I love what he said. He said they were almost too aggressive. So James Franklin's like, hey, I like you too. I just got out of a breakup. I need some time here to sort some things out. But I think that really is kind of the blueprint here for modern college football. If you're going to go after a top tier head coach, you better come with some solid NIL strategy and a war chest to go with it.
Yeah. So Steve, I know you don't have an exact number on it because it's just been complete chaos, but how many flips has Virginia had down the stretch here?
The
Virginia
Hokies,
Tech?
we can certainly count it out right now. Messiah Mickens was a big one. At one point committed to Penn State, behind the scenes was committed to Oklahoma, took an official visit to Virginia Tech because he had to see what James Franklin had brewing in Blacksburg, jumped in the fold. Pierce Pearson, 4-star tight end from Minnesota, number 1 player in the state per Rivals. He's a flip. That's 2. Marlon Bright, Rivals 300 offensive lineman. Matthew Lamile, 4-star edge rusher, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 11 flips or so.
Yeah, so maybe we can get a clean dozen by the end of the day. I think we can. Virginia Tech fans, talk to us in the chat. I mean, is this just the perfect scenario? When you were envisioning this program 2-3 months ago, who would have thought that signing day would finish with a dozen flips?
I mean, that's a Wiltfong dozen right there.
Some news breaking out here on the trail. Braylon Womack signed his letter of intent with Mississippi State, number 2 safety in the Rivals rankings. A big flip for Jeff Lebby and company earlier this week. There was a lot of smoke around Texas A&M. He visited the Aggies 2 Saturdays ago. Looked like he was trending towards College Station, but took 2 visits to Mississippi State this fall, including the Egg Bowl. Sees an opportunity to be an instant impact player in that secondary for a program that looked like they were on the rise this season. I talked to the agent of Calvin Russell. I think that Syracuse is still in strong position to keep him in the fold, but there are a lot of programs that would certainly love to get in the mix down the stretch for Calvin Russell.
Yeah, so we will see. I mean, that one kind of surprised me probably the most in terms of guys that we did not see sign letters of intent today. And who knows, maybe by the end of the day, I kind of feel like, Steve, do you feel like this could get resolved by the end of the day with Calvin Russell, or do you think this is going to go all the way till the end of the week?
Don't have a timetable on that. Was just told that he needs more time to continue to process his final decision. Syracuse had such an awesome 10-win campaign in year 1. Loves Fran Brown, wants to go help Coach Brown make an impact at that program at Syracuse. But there's a lot of people that would certainly love to see him play college football elsewhere, coaches that didn't give up on him throughout the process. I'm told that it still probably works out for Syracuse. He's just still got to think on it.
All right. We will continue to watch that one. Anything, the Chris Henry Jr. saga sounds like he has not signed a letter of intent. He might have signed something at the desk. I've seen people say, Well, he signed something at the desk. That doesn't matter. You could sign a piece of paper at the desk. I've seen that happen before. You could even sign the actual letter of intent. But if you don't fax it, you don't send it, I don't know what they're doing these days.
One that's being sent in is 4-star defensive lineman Bodney Cleveland, flipping from Texas to North Carolina.
Okay.
Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels with a massive recruiting class right now. They are sitting at number 17 in the standings, 40 commits for the Tar Heels. Yeah. West Virginia has 41, and they're still looking for a couple others. The back and forth with Amari Latimer, 4-star running back, tells Chad Simmons he's going to one of the W's.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, where he's committed. West Virginia coming hard down the stretch. Mountaineers worked to get him to Morgantown last weekend. Ferocious running back from the Peach State, Matt Sigg. That was someone that it's one of the few losses that James Franklin's going to take here at the end. Thought Matt Sigg was going to end up at Virginia Tech. Heard there was a lot of merchandise purchased in the Virginia Tech bookstore at the end of the Matt Sigg visit. I thought he was going to be able to be a Hokie, but it looks like West Virginia has come on strong for Matt Sigg down the stretch as they try and add to a top 25 class for Rich Rodriguez and his staff in Morgantown right now.
We need to look into what happens to that gear.
Yeah, does it get repurposed?
Also the hats. Sometimes you see brand new hats out on the table. Well, if you're committing to one of the team, what are you going to do with the other 5 hats?
When I covered Brian Brzez's announcement at his high school and he committed to Clemson, he answered the door at the school for me wearing a Michigan sweatshirt. And he goes, "This is the last day I can wear it."
That's a good point.
Always big for laundry day too. When something's dirty, maybe you got to throw on the other team's gear just to get through the laundry day. You know what I'm saying?
All right, so UNC adds another one. I said it earlier in this show. The Tar Heels have been able to be disruptive on the recruiting trail. We'll see what happens.
They had Julian Walker on campus this fall, and North Carolina, they have not been shy or bashful about the financial opportunity that you have to play college football in Chapel Hill. They've put some big opportunities on the table for these recruits. They have the number 17 class in the land. They flipped Kenton Dobson, a 4-star corner, top 100 player in the Rivals 300 from Miami earlier this cycle. They go up to Detroit, land a playmaker in CJ Sadler, who could make a difference at wide receiver slot or in the secondary on the next level. And I really like the quarterback that they have committed, Travis Burgess, 6'5", 205 pounds out of Loganville Grayson in the Peach State. He's a guy that has all the intangibles you're looking for at the position as a leader. He's a really good basketball player, still filling out his frame, a big, strong kid that has the traits and tools to be really good on the next level. Got injured as a senior, but had a promising Elite 11 showing, was looking forward to seeing him take a big jump as a senior. Now he's going to be at North Carolina for Coach Bill Belichick and company, looking to help get that program back on track.
Yeah, and they do need some help, so we'll see if this signing class can do it. Let's talk about the number 2 ranked team in America. We haven't given Notre Dame their flowers yet on National Signing Day. What a class this is. From head to toe, this isn't another example of a team when they lost their coach, they made a quick and swift move to Marcus Freeman, and it has paid dividends. There was no transition class. You don't have that transitional class that you're seeing right now with John Summerall down at Florida, even Lane Kiffin at LSU. Those are considered transition classes. But Notre Dame didn't really have to go through that, and they've just hit the ground running. You see it here: Rodney Dunham, Kerry Adams, Ian Premer, Joey O'Brien. Joey O'Brien inks. There were some rumors that maybe Joey O'Brien was looking around, but I think I got the notification at 7 a.m. this morning Central Time that Joey O'Brien was in. I love the skill players in this class, though. Steve, to me, I know we don't see any of them on this board, but to me, the skill players they got in this class are what makes it special.
Well, that's how good this class is, that you can only put so many names, and you don't even get down to Caden Finley and Bubba Frazier and Devin Fitzgerald, the son of legend Larry Fitzgerald. And until Notre Dame has the explosive playmakers that they want on the perimeter on Saturdays, consistent playmakers that can change the game with one touch, I think wide receiver recruiting is going to be a priority each cycle. And Notre Dame went out and is signing one of the top wide receiver groups in America. Caden Finley was one of Notre Dame's top targets, regardless of position, son of Jermichael Finley. beat Texas A&M, beat Arizona State for a young man that has a chance to be very impactful right away at Notre Dame. And to your point, they also go out and add Ian Premer, number 1 tight end in the country. This is a class that continues to play to Notre Dame's strengths, a very touted offensive line group, arguably the best defensive line class in the country, certainly the best secondary in the country. Mike Mickens is as good at his job as anybody in college football. He's one of the best defensive back coaches in America. And last year, he was our Rivals on 3 recruiter of the year, first guy I mentioned in our top recruiters in the country. He goes out and does it again, just reloading, restocking that room, guys that meet the standard and style of play that they want to have on the back end in a Notre Dame defense.
For folks just flying over recruiting, Josh, you check in the summer, you maybe take a look at it during the season, but Notre Dame, the ranking they have right now being number 2 in America, that's a July ranking we're used to seeing for Notre Dame. They usually start super hot, and there's a lot of buzz around the Irish, and Marcus Freeman's making Notre Dame cool again.
Yeah.
But it's had staying power. You got to think some of that, too, is to the national title run they had a year ago playing Ohio State.
Without a doubt, because like we said earlier, recruiting lags a cycle.
Yep.
So that run that they made is the reason, not the only reason, but a big reason on why Notre Dame currently has the number 2 ranked class in America. The results don't hit right away. And I know fans don't really understand that, but recruiting, it's kind of like an iceberg. What you're seeing today, like if Calvin Russell were to flip or any of these flips that we see, that's not really happening today. There's a whole recruitment process that was 1.5 to 2 years going on. So you need to make these good impressions early, and the earlier you can make them in the process, the more of a chance you're going to have in the end. So that's exactly what Notre Dame did. They just had a great year. So we're gonna talk more Notre Dame. Steve, I think the only bit of drama when it comes to Notre Dame recruiting this cycle, is there any drama? No, I was thinking of Zion Robinson holding off. Did anybody hold off for Notre Dame, or is there any drama today? Just want to tie this loose end up before we move on.
This terrific Notre Dame class that ranks number 2 nationally per the Rivals industry. This page is updated on rivals.com. A gold check next to every player. The LOIs are in.
It's got to feel good if you're Marcus Freeman and company.
Yeah.
It's got to feel good.
It's got to feel good. You got to love that. Another hot team on the trail that I think we need to talk about is Oklahoma. Steve, you've been doing a ton of reporting on Oklahoma. They have gained a lot of traction this cycle. Last year, it was a bit flat. This year, a lot of momentum heading into signing day, and you're seeing the results.
Yeah, Elee is the jewel of that class, in my opinion, a state champion quarterback out of Salina, Texas, looking to win another state championship as a senior, completing 70% of his passes in his final high school campaign. He's only thrown 1 interception as they try and buzz through the playoffs here. They beat LSU for Bo Bentley in the summer. Major win for them. Jaden Pettit, a 4-star receiver from the Sunshine State, having a fantastic senior season, one that they flipped from Wisconsin, a guy that they coveted and stayed on throughout the process. And then Jake Kroll is an edge rusher that they're super excited about. Brent Venables leads the charge for them on the trail. He did a terrific job at Clemson of being a lead recruiter for all the guys that they courted on the defensive side of the ball. Now as the head coach, he's got his hands on everybody that Oklahoma is recruiting. And this came into a cycle where people thought this Oklahoma staff was on the hot seat. So it was tough sledding to recruit for OU early on in 2026. They only go out and go 10-2 and are in line to host a home playoff game at the Palace late over the new year. And now with Oklahoma having success on the field, we're seeing the results on the trail. They have the number 2 class in America early in 2027. That includes 5-star Cooper Hackett, who they flipped from Joey McGuire in Texas Tech. So if Oklahoma's playing well on the field, we're going to see them roll on the trail because of the effort and energy that Brent Venables puts into recruiting.
Yeah, you know the traction is real when it comes to Oklahoma recruiting when they're flipping a Texas 5-star offensive lineman from Texas Tech. So that was huge, a big start to their 2027 cycle. But when it came to on-field play in 2025, what do you think the biggest bump? Where did they really gain in 2025 on the football field?
I think look at that defense, and that's the obvious answer because you see just how elite they've been on that side of the football. But I remember in the offseason, the news sort of trickles out that, hey, Brent Venables is indeed going to call the defense. And some people looked at that funny and said, well, he's coaching for his job. Maybe that's a little bit weird. Usually we see head coaches call the offense, but never really the defense. and they go out and have the year they've had. I think that just speaks to what Brent Venables has built, both from a roster perspective, from a culture perspective, from a schematic perspective, all those things. Like, it's all starting to line up for Oklahoma. And Josh, too, before the year, we're talking about Oklahoma having arguably the toughest schedule in college football, and they're 10-2 now and have a college football playoff berth more or less locked in. So I think the way they've built it over the past couple of years and the staying power they seem to have, especially on defense, got to be exciting if you're an Oklahoma fan.
Yeah, and there was some concern. Jackson Arnold was leaving that program. He was a 5-star that you recruited, that there was a lot of hope. But John Mateer really came in and kind of filled in the holes where they needed to and grew as the season went on. And I think that's one of the things about the portal is what you see. There's no preseason.
No preseason.
And for some of these guys, well, they were transferring late in the spring, but is that kind of a norm now? We saw it with Alabama. We saw it with Oklahoma. Is that to be expected?
At the quarterback position, that is? Yeah, I think it can be, especially when you need a shot in the arm. Like when you lose Jackson Arnold, and I don't think anybody was overly upset in Norman, Oklahoma with how that whole thing ended and probably saw it coming. The ability to take John Mateer, not just John Mateer, but his offensive coordinator, his quarterback coach from Washington State, and have him be the guy who is essentially teaching the offense. Like if John Mateer is trying to figure out the checks and everything in fall camp, we got problems. That wasn't the case. He's trying to figure out where do I want to eat during my break during fall camp. I mean, it wasn't anything having to do with the offense. So his ability to get everybody else up to speed within the offense, I think, is a big reason why you saw that jump in the first part of the year. Now, it hasn't been that way in the month of November. They've been winning ugly, but I think you get excited about what next year can be if John Mateer should choose to come back, which I think most people expect that to be the case.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. I mean, if he doesn't come back, do they have to hit the portal? What does this team need to take the next step?
I think you need the offense to get aligned, right? Which is sort of the obvious answer, but the offense you signed up for when John Mateer and that whole staff came over from Washington State was explosives, misdirection, quarterback design, run game, gashing the perimeter run game on the other side of that. So there's been a lot of facets of this Oklahoma offense that I think are still progressing and getting up to speed. And some of that, I think you look at the offensive line. Like they played a lot of young bucks up front this year, and that's tough to do in any conference, much less the most demanding conference on the line of scrimmage in college football in the SEC. So if they can get that aligned, then I think you get a better look at what a healthy John Mateer is, or whoever's playing quarterback using this hypothetical. So I think the personnel on the line of scrimmage here is the next step for Oklahoma.
All right, we're going to take a look at the rankings in just a second. But before we do that, I got to tell you guys about Roback. And there's only one way to describe Roback, and it's best fit, best feel. For those who aren't familiar with Roback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Roback has released my favorite with their new licensed game day collection, and it is our favorite as well. JD loves it.
Yep.
With novel polo designs, clean hoodies, and quarter zip designs for some of your favorite schools. It is definitely worth checking out. Nobody on the market is pairing these level of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Roback's everyday shorts or their Delta Performance pants are the perfect pairing as well, and they're both super comfortable. I have them. I love the elastic waistband, the great fabric that it is. It's just a very nice appearance and a nice looking short, but they are comfortable for every day on the move. Roback has also been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars, past and present. They are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across the country. So here's what we're going to do. Go to roback.com, use promo code JOSH for a generous 20% off all your new customers through the end of this month. That's RHOBACK.com. 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with promo code JOSH. All right, let's get back to it and take a look at the top rankings right now. All right. Here they are. USC still on top. We've had a little shift at the end. Look at the bottom. SMU makes a move. Ole Miss hanging in there.
On there, huh?
Oh, 25. It's just
25.
too bad. Mountaineers at 25. We've been talking a lot about them, but Mizzou got bumped out. I noticed that they are a program that is no longer in. The Florida State Seminoles have slid a couple spots, I believe, but no real. UNC moves up. I think UNC was sitting around 20 when the day began. But the biggest movement has been at the top, with Georgia falling to number 4, Notre Dame sliding into that number 2 spot. It's been a busy day. Steve, what are you tracking right now? The people want to know. They see you on your phone. They see you making phone calls, but the people want to know, what is the intel that Steve Wiltfong's tracking?
Well, I think obviously the two biggest storylines that are on my radar right now, Chris Henry Jr., will he send in his letter of intent for Ohio State or reconsider his college plans? And then quarterback Landon Duckworth. We have some big quarterback potential movement here at the end of the cycle. South Carolina was expecting his letter of intent at 7:05 in the morning local time per a source I talked to last evening. That LOI has not come in. Talking to more sources about that recruitment today, I like the way LSU is trending and have moved my Rivals prediction machine forecast to Lane Kiffin and the Tigers to ultimately flip 4-star quarterback Landon Duckworth.
Wow.
Wow. Okay. Well, from one insider to another, let's bring back on director of recruiting here at Rivals, Chad Simmons. And Chad, you are following a couple storylines that you brought to us before. Let's start with running back Carson Baker.
Yeah, I think that one is trending to a two-team battle based on what I've gathered this morning. Again, he's not announcing officially until Thursday around 10 a.m. Eastern time. I think fans will have a chance to maybe watch that right here on the Rivals YouTube channel with you, Josh. But that one I'm hearing the most about right now. Again, Texas A&M has made a late surge. Had an article on Rivals a couple of hours ago about that, and that move by Texas A&M, Trooper Taylor, Mike Elko, multiple staff members in College Station. I had a talk with Carson Baker over the last 24 hours. Sorry, phone ringing now. Sorry.
Hey, it's okay. You can get away with that on signing day.
It's that day. But anyway, with that, I think it's really two teams, Texas A&M and North Carolina. You know, I think those are two I hear the most about. I still lean towards Texas A&M, talking to people with Florida connections, South Carolina connections, not near as confident there in their chances for Carson Baker as they were maybe a day or two ago. And again, the team I'm hearing the most about right now is Texas A&M. I know we had multiple calls with them yesterday, one this morning as well. And the Aggies could come from really kind of out of nowhere and land Carson Baker. They're not giving up, calling back again. But we'll get that later. We'll get back to them. But the right now, again, I think A&M with North Carolina right there, with A&M being that trender for me as far as a team to watch. But you cannot rule out North Carolina.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about a former A&M recruit, Jordan Carter, elite edge, one of the top uncommitted available prospects. He's inside that top 300. 6'3", 244 pounds coming off the edge there. Jordan Carter, what's the latest? Who's involved here?
Man, every time, since he did commit, I think it was November 1st, I believe, he committed from Texas A&M, and then he went to OVs in this order of Tennessee, Georgia Tech, and Auburn. He kept Texas on that list to make it a 4-team race. We don't think Texas is even really involved there. We don't think Auburn is too involved with the coaching change there, kind of the uncertainty before yesterday with DJ Durkin coming back. But to me, it's been Georgia Tech and Tennessee, ACC versus SEC. And really, after each visit, Tennessee got the first shot. And in his words, they set the bar really high in Knoxville. The next week, he stayed home. He's an in-state kid here for Georgia Tech and Brent Key. He went to Georgia Tech. They rose the bar even higher than Tennessee and in his words, reset the bar and kind of took control and took the momentum. We knew it would go back and forth up until today. I think he decides around 4:00 p.m. Eastern time. I've heard there's some confidence in Atlanta. They can get it done and keep him home, but I'm still riding with the Tennessee Vols. They pushed really hard to make him really their main focal point the last week or so, an edge rush guy. They need pass rush help. They're looking to get guys like Jordan Carter, flipping J.J. Finch from Alabama, flipping Carter Gooden from UCLA. They want D-line help, specifically pass rush help. And I think Tennessee is going to do all they have to do to make this possible, make this happen this afternoon. But Georgia Tech, still one to watch, but right now I lean towards Tennessee.
All right, let's talk about Vodney Cleveland now out of Birmingham, Alabama, and his recruitment. At one point I thought it was going to be the Florida Gators. He committed to the Texas Longhorns. Now he's flipped his commitment. What is the latest on Vodney Cleveland?
Yeah, just, obviously I think just being honest, I think it came down to that he felt more wanted by those in Chapel Hill. I think Texas may have gotten a little bit complacent. He definitely wasn't pushed out of this class, but he had been committed, look, they're the Texas Longhorns. I mean, Texas is a national brand and the elite program, playoff team the last 2 years, played for the SEC championship a year ago. They stacked class after class after class under Sark. And, they didn't make him feel maybe as special as what North Carolina did. They just kept chopping away. They got him on campus for a game. They got him back for an OV. He visited Chapel Hill multiple times for games this year. On that last visit, he just felt that was the place. I mean, of course, NIL's involved there, the rev share and kind of what they can do. He can get on the field. He feels like early at North Carolina, but I just think North Carolina kind of saw an opening. He left that door cracked a little bit with Texas, and they kind of pounced on that to make this happen. I think the crazy thing about Vodney is he's one of many guys in that state of Alabama that has flipped this cycle. I mean, I think they're called the Yellow Hammer State, I think, almost like the Flip Me State, this cycle with Alabama with Vodney. I mean, you had Corey Barber flipping from Ole Miss to LSU, Hezekiah Harris going from Auburn to Tennessee, Shadarius Tootle, Auburn, Georgia, Auburn, J.J. Bush, Arkansas, Missouri, Deshaun Spencer yesterday, Duke to Auburn, and now we have Landon Duckworth, another Alabama kid on Flip Watch from South Carolina, two-time commit there, now leaning towards, LSU. So it's been very active in that state of Alabama this year, and we could see one more big flip in the coming days or coming hours.
I like it. The Flip State. We need to rename it. All right, Steve, you got something for Chad?
Yeah, Chad, what are you hearing on Florida commit Caden Hall from Milton, Florida right now? Has not sent in his letter of intent. Davian Gross is another that they're waiting on. His dad told me yesterday they were locked in with Florida, but I'm hearing Oklahoma buzz there. What are you hearing on Caden Hall down the stretch of his process?
Yeah, I think the plan for Caden, so it's really no surprise, at least on my end, that he did not sign yet with Florida or anybody else today. His plan's always been his birthday is Friday, which kind of falls the last day of the early signing period. He always planned to sign on that day. So I think December 5th has always been the day on his calendar. Now, it could get a little bit, tricky between now and then on who he signs with. But, I was hearing late last night that, and even early to this morning that Florida still has a good chance to hang on there and keep him. Look, Georgia Tech still going to battle. They're still fight on the flats in the 404 with Brent Key and company there. Ole Miss has tried to re-engage with the new staff there with Pete Golden and company. He took an OV to Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago. They've tried to get involved again too. But I've heard Georgia Tech was the biggest competition. And I even thought at one time, maybe around 24 hours ago, Tech had the momentum, had the edge with talks behind the scenes. But then I went back and talked to other people late last night, early this morning. I lean more towards Florida. But again, he never planned to sign today. I think Florida has a chance to keep him in this class. And it may actually be a good thing for them that they do have 2 more days to work on convincing that family that Sumrall and his staff is the right staff to play for at Florida.
Yeah.
Davian Gross, LOI in for Florida. So Dad telling me he was sticking with Florida last night. There was a lot of Oklahoma buzz elsewhere. Gators keep their top player in the fold, now working to keep another one of their top players, Caden Hall, in this class. Coach John Summerall and company sitting on the number 13 class in the Rivals Industry rankings right now.
Hey, I'll touch base while we're talking about Florida. I just got confirmation right now too. Longtime Florida commit cornerback CJ Hester is not going to sign today. He's been a Gator through and through, and he didn't, there wasn't a whole lot of chatter out there about, who he would go to. There's been some maybe Syracuse talk, a little bit of Iowa, here, but he's from Cocoa High School, an hour and a half or so from Gainesville. He's been to Florida a million times. He wanted to go to Florida from the start. And now he just confirmed just now to me that he is not going to sign with Florida or anybody else today.
All right. Well, Chad, anything else you're tracking right now?
I mean, obviously, we still got the big boys here in Georgia with Blake Stewart, Amari Latimer. I mean, those are guys who are going to, and even they're all in that 15. Look, man, Bodney Cleveland was supposed to sign around 10:30. I think they went all the way to around 12 o'clock because they introduced every coach and every teacher. So we know it says 3:45 for Blake Stewart. Woodward Academy might have 1 million academic honor guys signing today and stuff like that at that private school, and he may be 5 o'clock. But we know in that window of 3:45 to likely 4:30, we're going to see Blake Stewart, Amari Latimer, and Jordan Carter, 3 of the top guys in the state of Georgia, officially announced their decisions. We still think, based on talking to people and talking to different sources, Georgia has the edge. I still hear, as of 15 minutes ago, I talked to somebody at Woodward, Blake has not signed an LOI and done any kind of signatures with any school yet. To their knowledge, we still like where Georgia sits. Vanderbilt, giving them a tough time, though, as far as the Georgia Bulldogs. West Virginia, still battling for Wisconsin. We've heard Wisconsin has upped their NIL offer to try to counter what West Virginia's doing there with Amari Latimer to kind of keep him in the fold. We're still watching that. We just talked about Jordan Carter. I lean Tennessee's way over Georgia Tech right now. So a big afternoon coming up here in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, huge weekend. And I want to talk to you. There's one more player out there that I knew there was one floating out there that we didn't hit on. That's Tavian Branch, 6'4", 300 pounds, off of that Penn State commitment. Who's involved here?
Yeah, this has been very fluid, Josh. I mean, he was one-time Rutgers commit. He chose them over Oklahoma early, then flipped to the in-state school, James Franklin and Company at Penn State. He stayed committed after Franklin was dismissed there in Happy Valley. But, over time, he just knew it likely wasn't going to be for him. He decommitted, and it's kind of become a 2-team race. Vatech tried to get him on campus a week and a half or so ago. He did not make that trip to Blacksburg. He has talked to James Franklin a couple of times, but we don't think Vatech's truly involved here. Right now, it's an SEC battle. The 2 schools he took OVs to, Ole Miss and Auburn. Auburn got the last visit. As Branch was leaving on Sunday, Golish was coming in. Those two got like a 20, 30-minute conversation to go together as far as shaking hands, kind of get a quick early feel for one another. Since that time, Golish has kept DJ Durkin as the coordinator. He's kept Vontrell King Williams as the line coach. To me, that pushes Auburn to the finish line here in this race. I like where Auburn sits for Tavian Branch, and he announces in about an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we'll be keeping an eye on that one. There's not too many recruitments that we're going to be hanging on to, but the ones that we are absolutely big. Chad, how's your signing day been? 2026. It's almost in the books here.
I mean, it's been crazy. Obviously, there's Steve and I have obviously talked a lot. We were talking late last night about it. It doesn't seem to be as much maybe juice, maybe about this year compared to last year. We were chasing down like Naeem offered and TJ offered as he stayed with Ohio State, flipped to Miami. We're working the phones besides you guys, last year throughout that 4 or 5 hour window. And then as the night unfolds, the day unfolds, Landon Duckworth, Julian Walker, obviously Calvin Russell, that there's a lot more to it now than we thought 24 hours ago that makes this signing day just as exciting as any other one. So it's been pretty big, pretty fun.
Chad, we're going to be tracking Jace Matthews in the Friday Rivals 5-star recruit, number 3 wide receiver, who tells me that LSU is still involved, Ole Miss still in the picture. I think it came a bit as a surprise around folks on the plains that he wasn't signing today. He got a chance to meet Coach Golish on Sunday after attending the Iron Bowl. What are you hearing on Jace Matthews during the National Signing Day period right now?
From what I've gathered, Steve, I mean, I still think he's Auburn's to lose. Obviously, he's an Auburn commit. He's been that, since the, official visit period in the summertime where everybody just commits every day in June and July. I mean, and he's been pretty strong. He's had open dialogue at different times with Texas A&M and LSU and Ole Miss. Those were his top 4 schools when he committed. I mean, State, talked to him, Mississippi State, in-state school for him. Talked to him a couple of times yesterday. I've confirmed on Tuesday, but didn't really go very far. It seems like if he does change his mind, it seems like LSU is the school to watch here. And, I was told that, LSU is going to have to back up a Brinks truck, maybe 2, to get him away from Auburn, because Auburn's not going to lose Jace Matthews. They've already invested a lot, I'm told, in him, and they have a plan in place to match whatever LSU throws at him. And the one thing he does like about Auburn is, like, if people don't know, Jace tore his ACL late in the season. Auburn had no worries about that. They stayed with him, healthy, injury, rehab. He won't be the same player until a year or so from now. So there's still a lot of questions about him as a freshman. And I think Auburn, when they got him committed, they saw him being a big-time player right away next fall. That now could be a year delayed. And one thing I think Jason, his camp likes is, how the people, not even the coaching staff, but just the staff in general, the people around the program, handled that injury, kept supporting him, saying, hey, everything we said is still true. What we said was coming your way is still coming your way. Now, LSU is going to make a run. They are making a run. But I think from what I've gathered intel-wise, it'll be hard to get him away from Auburn in the end on Friday.
Yeah. All right, Chad. Great work today. I know you're not done yet, but thank you for dropping by today a couple times, checking in with us, dropping some intel on the Rivals Recruits channel.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Sending folks to voicemail too for us, man.
Woo,
that's big.
Chucking them to voicemail.
That's big
for
time
us.
right there.
We are the priority, and we appreciate that from Chad Simmons. A busy man today. So is Steve. So are you. So am I. But that's what we're here for. It's signing day. Let's flash those top rankings real quick. Here we go. USC at the top. Notre Dame, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, Miami, Texas A&M, LSU. That is your top 10. Tennessee not able to crack the top 10 just yet, but they're still alive in this. Tennessee still has some guys out on the board. But right now, should we go to we got an interview that we could do right now. Let's do this. Let's bring in Notre Dame GM. We're just talking about how great this Notre Dame class is, so this is appropriate. Mike Martin, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us on, and exciting day for us. It feels like Christmas morning or Christmas afternoon now.
Yeah, it goes fast. It goes fast.
It goes really fast.
How many cups of coffee are you on this morning?
Not a lot of coffee, but I'm advertising here for Coca-Cola. I got a bunch of cherry Cokes going. I got to keep it going somehow, keep the energy going. But
yep, we all have our own way of intaking.
I feel like I need a coffee though right now. I'll be honest.
Yeah, a little something stronger. So this was your first cycle at the college level, correct? What did you make of the experience of recruiting high school players?
Man, it is. I think I'm about nine months on the job here, maybe give or take. But, this first cycle through, I learned that, recruiting, there's a lot more layers to it than I could have ever imagined. I don't know that the word recruitment sort of, it tells the whole story. That first and foremost, there's so many people that are involved, from our head coach, Marcus Freeman, to the whole entire coaching staff who do a tremendous job, whether it's building these relationships, being on the road, to our recruiting staff. There's so many layers there. You go from evaluation, which is a part of recruiting. You go from building relationships, a part of recruiting, informing all of these prospects and their families of what Notre Dame has to offer, all a part of recruiting. Getting these young men here to see what an amazing place this is. And then, there's the now in the NIL age and the space we're in, there's some compensation that has to be worked out with these agreements and red lines that come back, and then holding on, and praying that, you're able to make it to signing day with your class. And so I don't know that, recruiting sort of tells the whole story there, the word recruiting, but there's a lot to it. But I'm glad that we made it to this day.
Mike, you got 20 years of NFL experience. I look at this secondary class that you guys have put together that'll maintain the standard of defensive back play in South Bend. Talk about Kerry Adams, Joey O'Brien, Aiden Pouncey in this group that you're bringing into South Bend.
Man, it's a tremendous group. Just a we're really excited about him. You've been excited from day one. There's, Kari Adams was, you guys have the graphic up here, number one cornerback, and he's a shutdown guy and a racer. You guys mentioned Joey O'Brien there. Joey is just a talented guy, long, rangy safety that just has a knack for taking the ball away. Aiden Pouncey can play wherever. Aiden Pouncey has played corner, has played safety, plays on the offensive side of the ball. He's a dynamic player that, is physical. He's tough. He's instinctive. He makes plays. Nick Reddish is another safety that we're bringing in. He's a talented guy, a tough guy, leader who sets the tone. Chad Smith, another long corner that we were able to add. Talented guy with just shutdown ability. And I want to make sure that I'm not missing anyone there. But yeah, we got a talented group, and we're just super excited about what they offer and what they're going to bring to Notre Dame.
As you look at this Notre Dame roster and your program that's looking to win the first national championship since 1988, what's kind of the emphasis as you guys put this roster together where you feel like you need to up it a little bit to win that last game of the football season?
Yeah, I would say that, it's not so much, the personnel. I think that we have the personnel. We're continuing to add the personnel. I think it's just sort of keeping our guys on track, which is what Marcus Freeman and staff have done a great job of, from starting 0-2 to fighting and clawing our way back and going 10 straight. I think it's keeping guys focused on the mission, in the mindset. And I think one thing that makes us different is, we're used to hard and we understand hard, and our guys, they realize that everything that we want in life is on the other side of hard. And so this is no different, and I just think that speaks to the resiliency of this team, the mindset. And so we just urge our guys and we continue to support our guys to continue to do what they're doing, outlast our opposition, and we'll continue to thrive.
All right, Coach. Well, we appreciate you. It's been a blast covering your recruiting efforts at Notre Dame, not just you, but the entire staff, the entire program. And your efforts have got you number 2 in America on National Signing Day. GM Mike Martin, thank you for dropping by the Rivals Recruits channel.
No, thank you. Appreciate you guys having us. And again, thank you to all of those that had anything to do with this Notre Dame class. Appreciate all of you. Too many names to mention, but we're grateful for everyone. And just glad that, we were able to get to this day. One thing I do want to point out, there's a lot of stats before I leave. I want to make sure, I think it's our highest ranked Notre Dame class of the internet era. Mm-hmm. Ranked top 5 on some platforms, number 2 on multiple platforms. But if you ask us, we're number 1.
Coach,
go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, you go from evaluating film for 20 years in the NFL to now evaluating high school film. How's that transition go for you in projecting guys to be All-Americans at Notre Dame from projecting guys to be all pros in the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a challenge. I mean, you go from the best film possible to some huddle film at times that's a little grainy, a little hard to see, and you're trying to figure out, where the guy is on the tape. So there's some challenges there. But I'll tell you that, what I found is that, talent seems to sort of rise to the top. You'll see, I look for things that I feel like I've seen before, that I've seen at the NFL level. And I think all of these guys that we have signed in this class have shown flashes of some of the things that I've seen before. Skill sets, whether it's speed, whether it's agility, whether it's, short area change of direction, strength, explosiveness on contact, some of the intangible qualities, the playing with passion and high effort and energy. Those are all of the things that sort of look for. And so although the film isn't necessarily the greatest around necessarily, I think some schools do a really, really nice job. There's other film that isn't so great, but the job is sort of the job and the objective is still the objective. And that's to identify those talents and those traits. And we feel like we've done that with with our 27 guys that we've signed.
Yeah, and we feel like you've done that as well with the way that we've ranked them. So congratulations. Go get yourself another cherry Coke and finish the day strong. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it. I did want to say the one thing before is that the one thing I think I'm most proud of all these stats is that we've had 0 decommits, and 0 decommitments. So like there's all these awesome stats, but the one we're most proud of is the 0 decommitments. Of all the Power 4 teams, I think we may be the only that had 0 decommitments. And I think that speaks to the relationships that we build here. And I think that speaks to what makes this place different.
Yeah. All right. I agree with that. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. He made a great point about that, because I remember the first year I got here, we were sitting at the desk. Remember the Peyton Bowen recruitment?
Oh my gosh, man.
And that was kind of like the cherry on top. I mean, they had lost a couple other high-profile commitments, and then it was Peyton Bowen on signing day with all the drama with Oregon and Oklahoma. So it's phenomenal to see where Notre Dame is right now.
And a lot of recognizable last names, 3 NFL legacy recruits. And I'm just thinking too, back to the conversation about the questions that parents are asking. Like if you're an NFL parent, think about how next level those questions are for a Mike Martin, a Marcus Freeman, a Mike Denbrock, so on and so forth. So if you're checking the boxes for those questions from those caliber of players, from what the NFL careers were, doing something right internally.
Yeah. All right. Steve, do you have any last minute intel? Ryder Lyons, it looks like he's holding off on signing. Chris Henry Jr., we don't have any finality on him. What are you tracking as we head out of the show?
Yeah, Adam Gorney with the story on Ryder Lyons not signing. I don't think it's a huge surprise in the sense that he is taking that LDS mission after his senior year, and he is essentially more of a 2027 recruit. So he can take his time and continue to see how the landscape of college football shapes up.
Sure.
I think people around him have wanted him to go to BYU the entire process, and he is committed to the Cougars right now. There was talk that Penn State zeroed in on their head football coach, but he is staying with BYU. But Ryder Lyons still being patient with signing his letter of intent. Landon Duckworth, still a big storyline to me. LSU, Lane Kiffin looking to get a flip at the quarterback position with the current South Carolina commit. And Marcus Benjamin, our guy in South Florida, talked with Calvin Russell, said that Florida State, and Miami are all schools that were reaching out over the last few days that are giving him things to think about. He expects to make a decision Thursday or Friday. A source close to Calvin thought that he still rides with Fran Brown in Syracuse, but certainly now we have some schools we can zero in on. The new staff at Florida, FSU swinging, and then Miami. I think for Miami, it's always been about where Syracuse and Michigan put a high value on Calvin when he went through his process. Let's see what Miami does here at the end of the cycle and how hard they push.
But speaking of Miami, when this show ends, you guys need to come back to the channel in about 2 hours, because we're going to have a big commitment going on live on signing at 2026 recruit Karsten Bush out of Louisville, Kentucky. He's 6'2", 221-pound linebacker. Steve, set the table for this decision. That are we 2 hours out on this?
Excuse me, say that again.
Are we 2 hours out on Karsten Bush?
Yeah, Karsten Bush going to announce on our platform Miami trending over Louisville, Vanderbilt, Wisconsin, some of the other programs in the mix.
All right. Well, that puts a bow on our signing day coverage, at least the live signing.
Well, hold on. Let's end the show with this. Landon Duckworth on the potential flip watch. South Carolina battling back a little bit. And so we'll see if the Gamecocks can maintain Landon Duckworth's pledge down the stretch, or if he wants a fresh start at LSU.
Well, he's already committed to South Carolina twice, so he'll know how to do it a third time if he wants to. We're going to be tracking that. We're going to be tracking Karsten Bush. We're going to be tracking Chris Henry Jr. Stay tuned. Stay locked in. We have a live commitment coming in 2 hours.